so abstract. Yeah, it's complicated. What you say, the way you act, well, it makes me so confused. I don't know what to do anymore. Can't you just make up your mind? My heart drops when you play around. How can you be up when I'm down? Don't wanna think about it right now. Maybe you just wanna be friends, but there is a fight when we are talking. Maybe you just wanna pretend, but I can read between the lines. Even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting, still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be. Baby, I don't wanna be. No, baby, I don't wanna be. Baby, I don't wanna be. How it hurts to see you smile, like a dagger in me. She just seems so juvenile. I just want it to be me. I wanna set your world on fire. Oh, you're so sure I'll stick around. Oh, my heart drops when you play around. How can you be up when I'm down? Don't wanna think about it right now. Maybe you just wanna be friends, but there is a fight when we are talking. Maybe you just wanna pretend, but I can read between the lines. Even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting, still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be. Baby, I don't wanna be. Oh, even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting, still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be. No, baby, I don't wanna be. No, baby, I don't wanna be. Baby, I don't wanna be.
I see something, it's coming up on the horizon. Oh, let me clear my head and get rid of the distractions. Oh, I was down when I saw you in the clouds. Out of days, filled with doubt. I was drifting in and out, levitate, fade away. I had left full time and space, but you just caught my eye. Hey, nah, 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 nah. Please won't you come over? Let me get to know ya. Hey, nah, 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 nah. Delve into emotion, leave us in this moment. like I'm crazy. When I shut my feelings down, you look at me like I'm different. Still you stay cause you feel something real. Get so lost in my moments. Doesn't mean I don't need you. I fell in love with your colors. They kinda tell me what I'm thinking. I fell in love with the way we are and the way we lose it. There's something different about us, and the reason why we stay. We fly around like paper planes. They never know where we will fall. Nobody can see us, still they wanna tear us apart. There's something different about the way we are. There's something different about us. 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 We're pouring cup after cup after cup. Yeah, it's just the way we do it. Anything just to block out the real life, real life. Yeah, we're loving the way they think we're so messed up. Even if what we're doing is bad, there's so many emotions. Sharing stories that we never had, yeah, none is real. I think we're searching for reasons not to be like them. We fly around like paper planes. They never know where we will fall. Nobody can see us, still they wanna tear us apart. There's something different about the way we are. There's something different about us. 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 Something different about the way we are. There's something different about us. Something different about the way we are. There's something different about us.
Over 400 of the best Clash Royale players in the world, narrowed down to 16 on their way to $5,000 this weekend at Royale Masters. Hello, everybody. I am Andrew Guy, and joining me today is Rich. Oh, wait, no, that's not Rich Slayton. That's Breaky CPK. What is up, my man? You've been casting for a very, very long time. How are you doing today? Talking some Clash Royale.
I'm not as beautiful of a person as Rich, but, you know, I try my best. I'll try my best to fill his shoes. But, no, I'm excited to be here, as you mentioned. Been around esports for a while, but I've always, been a player of Clash Royale. I have casted an event in the past. It's been a game that's actually just very entertaining to me to both play and even watch, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah, man, well, we're really excited to have you here, and as I just said, we had some incredible competition yesterday. I think there was an overwhelming amount of competitors from the highest of the highest, top-tier, best in the world, period. Mohammed Light, Lucas X Gamer were here yesterday, all the way down to players we'd never heard of that have stayed perfect, like Abdu Judo. Don't know who he is, but he's still absolutely flawless through 6 games this weekend. Talking about this weekend, we are giving away $5,000, but it's all been due to this pretty awesome format that Royale Masters has presented to us. Let's talk about that format here right now. So here we go. Day 1, Swiss bracket. Breaky, I'll let you take it over, man.
Oh, for sure. So obviously day 1, as happened yesterday, of course, if you tuned into the coverage, you saw there was 4 groups, the Swiss bracket. They play against one another, and then you keep on winning. You do better. Ultimately, if you finish top 4 in your group, you actually move on to then what is day 2 here of the top 16. Now, the top 16, it's a lot more simple. It's straight up single elimination, where the 16 players are going to be played all simultaneously, and then after the first round, we're going to start covering every single series individually, all the way to the very finals.
That's right, and like we said, those finals will be giving away $5,000. Not over. We cut it off right there at $5,000 per weekend. And there you go. There's the prize pool. $5,000 per weekend for the qualifiers, but $25,000 up for grabs in total here throughout the entirety of Royale Masters, which will be coming to you guys every single Saturday and Sunday for the next 4 weeks in a row. This is our open qualifiers, as we were just talking about. Over 400 people down to 16, but not all of them can walk away with money. First place gets 24, second 12, third, fourth, and fifth are going to share the rest of that remaining $1,000. And when we talk about these remaining 16 players, let's take a look at the bracket. Some of these players were perfect through their 6 matches. Others dropped a game or 2 along the way, and we're going to start our day off at the very top of your screen there with Wero and Wallace, 2 of the best players in the world. Wero, one of the better bridge spam players you've probably ever heard of, and Wallace, who represents Tribe. Wallace dropped 1 game yesterday, 1 match to Sagar, who actually did not make it all the way through. But there's some other names you might recognize in there, like, I don't know, Schwatzen, Furia, Paradox, Inthril was perfect, Tico still rocking things, Abdu Judo, the no name that I don't know of that is perfect as well, and of course, Furkan, who slid in at the very, very end. Very exciting stuff, and as Breaky was letting you guys know, we're going to cover one of these matches in round 1, and then we'll be covering all the matches all the way through. The only one we might miss is maybe that 3rd place match, depending on time, but hopefully we can get it all in. And a great thing about this tournament, Breaky, is our duel format. Duels is something that has become very popular in CR in general at the competitive scene. CRL, we have a very specific one, as does Royale Masters. Royale Masters has a fun one where you bring 8 cards, just as you normally would to the competition. If you win, you cannot repeat any of those 8 cards for the rest of your best of 3s. However, if you lose, you can repeat whatever you'd like. And I think this led to some really, really interesting decks that came out to play yesterday.
Yeah, that really is an interesting idea, the concept that you have to at least come in with a couple of decks, if not more, right, as far as the strategy that's involved, and preparing to possibly switch it up. So, what were some of the decks that maybe stood out to you as far as unique factors or unique cards or anything like that that we happen to see?
Well, I think what's really interesting about this format is when you start the best of 3 set off, and we're going to be playing best of 3s all throughout the entire Royale Masters competition, is that you want to start with a deck that doesn't cover a lot of other bases. So in the current meta right now, there's obviously decks that are very popular. There's cards that are very popular. Royal Giant, Royal Hogs, those are 2 of the most popular win conditions in the game, but you usually only use those once anyway if you've been playing dual format. It's usually about the spells. Fireball and Log, the 2 most popular spells in the game, and the 2 most powerful spells, because when you talk about the Fireball being able to take so many units off the board, it seems like the absolute best spell in the game for 4 Elixir. But if you're in this specific duels format, you maybe want to hold on to the Fireball and the Log into maybe game 2 or 3. If you show too much, if you show too many powerful cards, too many effective cards in the meta, RG, Mother Witch, Fireball, Royal Hogs in game number 1, then your opponent can start to pick you apart as we get into games 2 and 3. So a very long-winded answer to your question, I really like seeing a lot of Lava Miner in game number 1. The reason there is you don't have a lot of overlap when you talk about other really popular decks in the game. The Miner being maybe the most popular, or one of the most popular win conditions in the game, is a card that is a very, very high skill cap card when you talk about competition. So I love it. I think Lava Miner is a deck that's shown up a lot over the last week, and I think a lot of our competitors yesterday realized it was a great deck to come out with in game number 1.
Yeah, something else to really keep in mind, I suppose, especially with this being a global competition. Now, maybe you could, help understand this a little bit more, but as far as the players and how familiar they are with one another, right? So if you're perhaps a little more familiar with one player, you may be expecting certain decks or certain cards, a certain play style even, to be coming out, but then that's where the mind games start, right? Where it's like, well, they may know that about how you know about them, and then they're like, well, I'm going to run something else instead. So that's just the ever-evolving strategy, and having a format like we have here, I'm sure we're going to see a bit of surprises throughout when it comes to this competition. Top 16 we're starting, and it looks like we are going to be jumping into our first match now.
That's right. Schwatzen top of your screen, or excuse me, Schwatzen bottom of your screen, Osama top of your screen, and he's going to start with an Earthquake cycle in the back there. And it's a really, really great point that you make. There's so many of these players that are really well known in the community, and most players, at least at the highest level, are all known for maybe favoring a couple types of win conditions or archetypes. And you never really want to open with what we call your comfort deck because it's so easy to game against. You never want to be a person that gives up game number 1 because you rocked your most known for win condition. And right now, bottom of your screen, it's a really good deck as well when we talk about cards that don't overlap a lot. Tesla's still really strong in the game, but we're going to go with Hog, Psycho with EQ, bottom of your screen, Firecracker in there as well. And then top of your screen, Osama's going to be running a Graveyard deck. And we were speaking a little bit about Graveyard yesterday as a win condition. Not a lot of players running Poison early on. A lot of players using Fireball just because it is favored. So coming out with Graveyard in game number 1 has actually proven to be a pretty strong move.
Yeah, obviously using it early right there. That's now Cannon's making its way over, but a Firecracker. Played in response by Shortson to help against it. The Snowball going to be knocking him forward, though. And the Lock used to try to slow down as much as possible. And the forces in front ultimately block that Cannon the best they can. But it seems like, no, nice try holding the aggro right there with Valkyrie going the other direction, actually. So a little bit of slow start, as it tends to be, of course, in these matches. But Valkyrie's going to make her way up. And now we'll see as the elixir starting to add up. Of course, 20 more seconds before that double elixir kicks in. That's where we can see a bit more. But perhaps Shortson, so what would you say this win condition for Shortson here?
So Schwatzen's last card is going to be the Hog Rider. There it is. It's going to come down. And what's interesting about this is he knows his opponent has a building, which is why he was holding there. He was probably trying to see if it was going to be Bomb Tower or Tesla, since those have been the most popular as of late. Bomb Tower getting a buff recently, Tesla getting nerfed. But the biggest issue for him here is not getting over-aggressive because his opponent has Graveyard. Can really punish him for that. It's going to be all about, for Schwatzen, I mean, knowing him at the highest level, he's going to sneak Hogs in where and when he can, but it's really going to be more about the defense. Playing defense against Graveyard with this deck can be pretty tough. You usually have to overspend a little bit. You have to either time your Earthquake perfectly, but you want to save that for offense, as we're seeing right here. So I think what Schwatzen's going to do is he's going to make sure that he's got cycled cards in the back here like Firecracker. He's going to get his Skeleton cycled. And then he's going to try to set the line high, I think, with the Valkyrie, so that these two units can't cause too much trouble. There you go. Valkyrie up high, Firecracker drop down low. Tesla in a great spot to support. But still, man, there's a lot of damage coming in, and you really don't ever want to fall that far behind when you're playing a very fast cycle deck like this Hog cycle deck.
Yeah, you see the Graveyard again constantly doing damage right there, but of course going to enter that overtime phase now as another Firecracker being sent out. The Valkyrie once again going to be in front. There's a Valkyrie response, so we're seeing that cycling constant, but again the Graveyard in the back. It just seems like this is going to be a cycle that will favor Osama in the end unless that change happens from Shotson. Grabs the Hog, going the right tower and trying to make a play right here, but he is taking way too much damage, doing his best defense with the Firecracker. Those Skeletons getting down to 141. It's close. It's not over yet, but it's looking tough.
Yeah, Fireball going to come down, and Schwatzen's already calling the good game. He knows there's no way to win this one. Fireball plus Snowball will do enough, and that's exactly what you have to do when you're running that deck that Osama is running. He knew what his opponent was playing. Not a lot of Firecracker out in the meta right now, other than with Hog Rider, and then you know Earthquake has to come in. And the tough thing with running this deck is Earthquake and Log are usually always the two spells. It's really tough to cover a Poison. I mean, a graveyard, right? Poison is what you want, or, you know, units like archers. You need to save your Valkyrie to set the line up high so that you can't have takes coming across the bridge. So how do you defend? And it becomes this thing where you either have to overspend or you have to time everything perfectly and use your offensive spell and Earthquake defensively. So Schwarzen just really in a tough place there. He knew that with his opponent running graveyard, there was definitely going to be a building, but then you add in the fact that he had Snowball and all that good stuff in there. It was going to be really, really tough for him to really ever break through.
So it's worth noting now, of course, Osama having to change his deck, as we talked about with the format that we're coming out with here. So it'll be interesting to see what he switches over to. But if you're Schwarzen, so just to clarify, if you happen to lose a game, do you have to switch, or like, can you switch cards, or do you have to stay to your deck? Okay,
yeah,
you can if you want to.
Yeah, the world is your oyster. If you lose a game, you know, you can change the deck up, you can run it back. I don't think we really saw anyone run decks back yesterday that they lost with, maybe just leaving a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth. But I actually don't hate the idea. I think one of the issues with the deck that we just saw is that most everyone's going to run a building. Fisherman is really popular in the meta right now with Royal Giant as well. And then the other part of it is that Snowball is a really cheap and effective spell that really slows down your Hog Rider. So it's kind of a bit of a gamble running it in game number 1, but I know that Schwarzen's idea was that he didn't want to use a deck that overlapped with win condition too much. You don't use Hog Rider, Earthquake, Hog Rider, Earthquake, and Firecracker in too many other decks, right? So this is the idea of to feel your opponent out, feel him out in game number 1, and then, okay, all right, so now that he doesn't have X available, how can I punish him? And it's going to be interesting to see, because Osama's spells in there, you know, when you talk about Snowball being one of them, Log or Bait in general still doesn't seem that appetizing. I'd really like the idea of going to Royal Hogs, I think, in game number 2.
Okay, so Royal Hogs perhaps going to be coming. I know you mentioned Royal Giant, another possibility as far as a win condition there as well. So of course, it's going to be interesting to see what the changes that happen, what changes are made. And once again, a reminder: this is round of 16 here on day number 2. All the matches are happening simultaneously, so this just happens to be the series that we jumped into. But after this one, we are going to be watching every single series individually, starting with the top 8. So we got a lot of Clash Royale. And that's just the first game that's kicking it off right there. But definitely excited to see it's that $5,000 prize pool. And that's something else, actually, real quickly, as we're waiting to get into game number 2 right here, is a lot of qualifiers for just different esports or competitions in general, you know, may not necessarily have an individual prize pool. You kind of just, it's qualifying for the part that has the prize pool, right? But that's what I love about seeing about this event. You know, they're making a point, hey, you had to grind through 400 plus players to even just qualify in the first place. So here's a little bit of something, a little bit of compensation there.
Yeah, you deserve a little bit along the way. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, man. And looking at these guys and what they did this weekend, Osama dropped one of his sets yesterday, but he was still able to squeeze into the top 4. And on the other side of it, you look at Schwarzen. Schwarzen absolutely perfect through the entire weekend. He ran into a lot of great competition. And here we go. We called it, right? Schwarzen comes out with Royal Hogs. Osama sees it. He's got Mega Knight there. Not exactly what you want to see when you're running Royal Hogs as a win condition. It's a really great trade. Even though it's a 7-for-5 trade, the MK obviously gets to cross the bridge untouched. Speaking of untouched, it leaps on the tower. Mother Witch in suit. And this just might be a very quick 2-0 set. Osama playing very well in game number 1. He's definitely having the matchup advantage. And now getting abused is Schwarzen, who has to overspend defensively on the right-hand tower. And Osama goes in with the E-Barbs at the bridge on the left-hand side. This is really, really tough stuff. Talking about bad opening hand, bad start, and the fact that your opponent has your number in regards to Mega Knight versus Royal Hogs.
And he's got his own Royal Hogs right there, and he's having to take all this chip damage. He's going to get down to 500 or so, even less, on his own tower before finally he's able to respond. But the mental state right now of Schwarzen definitely has to be, pretty low. You go back to the idea that he had that early play, and right away that Mega Knight coming out, not only for a good counter play at that point, but just that knowing that he has the good counter to what's your attempted win condition here. But the ship going to go forward, as Barbarian's also put down. You see he's going to keep his tower alive for now, but you know those Hogs eventually going to be coming out. Has to save up that elixir, fight against it.
There you go. Mother Witch coming down. E-Barbs have to respawn, make sure she doesn't spawn too many piggies on top of that Zappy. Talking about Osama yesterday and where he struggled, it was against Wero, who we thought we might have been opening our match off today with Wero versus Wallace, but Wero may be an opportunity for revenge in the future here for Osama, as Wero had played very, very well, but we have to see if he can take down Tribe's Wallace as we continue on here in game number 2. Osama up by about 1.5 miles when you talk about the fact there's only 324 remaining on one tower and only 1,400 remaining on the other. very comfortable cycling that MK in the back.
Yeah, he's just going to let it do its thing as it walks up forward. Eventually going to leap here in just a sec, but 30 seconds remaining before we hit that overtime phase. But out comes the Poison on top of that tower. The Mega Knight, he's going to be stopped by the E-Barbs. In place, Flying Machine also assisting. Best it can, the Hawk getting there down to 140, so the tower staying alive. And Schwarzen giving himself a chance, but the Royal Hogs are going to leap past one another, and that's going to favor Osama. It looks like Buddy's going to get the red tower. He is going to stay in it, and he will stay alive as we go into overtime. So holy crap, what a play there. The Royal Hogs do it.
Yeah, the Flying Machine sneaks in for Schwarzen on that last push, and then he just sends everything that he's got. He goes down to 0 to get those Royal Hogs in. Osama maybe should have saved his elixir to defend a little bit more adequately, making sure that Flying Machine did not connect. As going into a 2-tower game, he does still have the advantage, but it's never something that you want to give away for free, and it felt like right there the MK would have been a better response than going completely offensive. But here we are, 2-tower game, 1,400 remaining on 1, though, to a 22 very healthy tower for Osama at the top of your screen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've been in a position earlier on before the overtime phase, and Strata was able to come back and at least force it. So who knows what's going to happen, it feels like. But again, the Hogs cleaned up pretty easily, as not much damage able to happen there in favor of Strata. And now the counter Hogs from Osama. He's going to put down the Witch and try to clear them out, but the Poison on top of that. That tower is starting to tick down. It will stay alive, down to about 840, 820. And continues to tick down a little bit further. Now the E-Barb's coming up. But you know that Mega Knight eventually going to be had once again for Osama, and it's how can Schwarzen stop it? There we go.
Yeah, the issue here for Schwarzen is that when you look at Osama's responses, he has so much more just because of that MK in regards to splash damage, AoE damage to get on top of those Hogs. Schwarzen has to overspend and single target DPS his way through these Royal Hogs every time, which is why you see so much damage coming in. That's tower down. Poison's going to tick away. 1 HP remains, so Osama's got to play a little bit of defense here.
The 1 HP dream is real. Here we go. Can Schwarzen do it? The offensive GG's already being called. But you know, he's just cycling. He's cycling for another Poison, and that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, it's that's the thing with the Poison, too, especially the way he was playing it on Osama's side. It feels like it's, you know, that constant damage is just going to keep happening. You only have so long before it eventually is going to get the kill, right? So he was definitely on a clock for really all of that match from the very beginning. And honestly, I think Schwarzen made it more interesting than perhaps expected the way that started. But Osama, the victor in the end.
Yeah, it's tough stuff there when you talk about matchup in both of those games. Game 1 was really, really tough in regards to the fact that Osama had a great way to create opposite lane pressure with cheap graveyard responses, or he could overspend, get a Valkyrie in front of a cannon cart, then drop a graveyard on the back end once we were in double elixir. Really difficult for anyone to defend with a Hog EQ deck unless you're using Earthquake defensively, which you need to use offensively to break through the bomb tower. Then you go to game number 2, and I think really the only thing that Schwarzen could have done differently early on was split his Hogs at the center of the map. That way he's giving dual lane pressure. That way you're not giving a massive amount of value to the MK. But that's the thing that you have to do at the highest level sometimes, is you have to gamble. He went with a gamble that did not pay off. He sends in his Hogs for basically a negative trade because that MK stays healthy. He has to overspend over and over and over defensively, and Osama doing a great job recognizing cycle, recognizing elixir, and punishing him opposite lane. So, you know, Schwarzen, one of the best in the world, but we're already saying goodbye to him this early on in the broadcast, man. And that's one of the things that you love and hate about single elimination brackets.
Well, and I was going to say, again, I've definitely used your expertise on this. When it comes to a format such as this, obviously we had the Swiss format yesterday, as mentioning, where that allows you to play many different matches, and, you know, you're really going to get a feel for your decks. And the RNG factor isn't maybe as necessarily as crucial because you have so many chances. Where in a single elimination, that's not the case, as you're just pointing out right there. Sure, it's a best out of 3, but especially if you have to change your deck if you win, I mean, is this fairly typical for a format as far as single elimination goes, or would you almost rather see the double elimination if you're a player?
Yeah, I mean, I think yesterday with the Swiss bracket, with as many people that were involved, I think the people that deserve to be here, at least this weekend, are here. And obviously a reminder to everyone out there watching, if you follow along with Royale Masters on Discord, on Twitter, on YouTube, you can compete here as well. Breaky and I, Rich and Eric, whoever it might be up here, can break down your matches. You can also compete for over $5,000 up to $25,000. So that's up to everyone out there. But to answer your question, you know, I think I am okay with single elimination today. We're still going through the qualifying rounds. People are still earning their points to make it to playoffs. I think if you were able to go 5-1 or 6-0 yesterday, you should be able to keep that trend going. And talking about that trend, we're getting a little bit of an update here on our bracket. You guys can always hit !bracket in the chat there on Twitch. And Adriel moving on forward, taking down Furia. Legolas taking out Abdu Judo. Very surprising there. I was excited to see Abdu Judo. I was actually going to ask production if we could go to maybe his matches in round number 2, just because he played perfectly yesterday and we never got to highlight him because, or them, I should say, because we didn't know who they were. But eliminated by Legolas, one of the better mortar players out there in the world. Furkan eliminates Titan, which was also kind of a crowd favorite yesterday, kind of a Cinderella story yesterday, and Titan also playing very, very well. Nicola moves on, and then as you can see there, Osama versus Schwarzen. Osama is going to move forward as Wero and Wallace continue to battle things out. Wero's up 1-0, and then DVJ and Legend A 1-1, and it looks like Inthril and Paradox are taking their sweet time. Exciting stuff here as we're working our way through this bracket, man.
Yeah, it's, as you mentioned, one of those series going to be getting started soon, hopefully. But, again, making our way through, and like we talked about, I know that a lot of that's moving on as far as the first round there goes, but if you're tuning in, everyone, even a little bit later, the top 8, we're going to be covering every single series all the way through, and perhaps even the third-place match, if time allows for it, but all the way to the finals, where, again, there's that $5,000 prize pool, and the players also getting points to advance on to the big event, where there will be that $10,000 prize pool on the line, so...
Get into November there. I'm checking out the chat here. Looks like we have a guest appearance from Rich Slayton.
I saw that.
Saw people asking in the chat where Rich was. Well, Rich is there. Rich is here. And today it's going to be Breaky and myself breaking things down. And yeah, I think what's really fascinating about what we saw already in the bracket today is a lot of the names that are a little bit more famous or a little bit more well-known in the space are the ones that have moved on. I think Osama versus Schwarzen is kind of a coin toss. Both those guys have been in the CR professional or semi-pro scene for a long time. But when you look a little bit lower with Legolas, with Furkan, with Nicola versus Tico, these guys are maybe just a little bit more experienced, and you wonder if coming into the final day of Royal Masters this weekend, knowing that there's that much money on the line, if you start to really feel that pressure, you start to make mistakes. I mean, I was actually pretty surprised with what we saw in this matchup, but I think it was a lot more about the matchup advantage towards Osama and less about Schwarzen making misplays, because he played some pretty clean Clash Royale in general. It was just didn't really have a lot of responses to what his opponent was giving him.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the point, especially, being that single elimination factor. Hey, as a spectator, it is arguably pretty awesome because it is that idea that everything's on the line for this one match.
Yeah.
If you lose, you're absolutely done. But I can understand as a player, it's unfortunate, especially where there is a little bit of randomness involved, specifically not only with the gameplay itself to an extent, but of course the deck selection. But as you're getting at right there, I mean, that's just that's the name of the game sometimes. And Schwarzen giving his best effort, but sometimes it's only so much that you can do when you're in an outmatch from. Clearly, that's what it sounded like there against Osama. So I'm sure we're going to see more of that throughout.
Yeah, we definitely will, and that was something that we saw a lot yesterday, was people getting really, really picked apart in games 2 and 3 when you talk about what they didn't have in their arsenal anymore. And, Royal Hogs being one of the most popular win conditions in the game, Schwarzen has to give that credit to his opponent, thinking that, hey, maybe they will run Mega Knight. Not only are Royal Hogs popular in the game, but Mega Knight is really, really popular as well. When you talk about opening with 5 Elixir offensively that gives you no utility on the back end, that's a tough way to start things off against one of the better players in the world. So looking at some of our matchups in round number 2, we have Legolas going up against Furkan. Nicola is awaiting the winner of Inthril versus Paradox, who's tied at 1. DVJ and Adriel will face off here at the top of our bracket. And Wero and Wallace still in a staring match here at 1, waiting to see who will go on to Osama. And just to let people know here in the chat, yes, we read the chat. Yes, we'll respond to the chat. And we, Breaky and myself, we do not pick the games. We just suggest the games. We don't click start. We don't click spectate. We just talk. That's all we can really do. We can barely even read. We can mainly only speak. And I can only speak half the time anyway. So guys, patience is a virtue. But while we're hanging out, feel free to talk to us in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions about the meta, about the competition, about how you can compete. I saw someone talking about that, and I'll keep reminding you, anyone can compete. Next weekend, Saturday's your day. Open qualifier, over 400 people were in it this weekend. Maybe we'll double that number next weekend.
I might give it a shot myself. I mean, I'm having some fun commentating. I believe Slayton might be back in the future, though, so if he is, I'll gladly be a player one of these. I'll probably be knocked out initially, but hey, it's open qualifiers are great. They're great, especially for a game like this where it's easily accessible, and the global aspect of it, it makes it even that much easier to be able to compete, honestly. So it's really cool.
Players from all over the world here competing. Only a few Americans in this comp. Actually, I don't even know if we have any players from the U.S. actually in our finals. Looking through this, actually do not think that we do. Players from all over the world. I see some, people from Denmark, people from Brazil, people from Russia, other players from Brazil there. So it does feel like the international scene has taken over at least this weekend of Royale Masters. And what's the best RG deck right now, asks Santa. There's a lot of good RG decks out in the game right now, but definitely if you're going to rock Royal Giant, you need to have Fisherman, you need to have Mother Wish, you need to have Fireball, and you can probably put the rest together from there on out. Holy Okami asking, are there any cards you feel like should be nerfed? Talked about it yesterday a little bit. I don't like Furnace because of double spawner decks, and I really think that Mother Witch is just a little bit stronger than she needs to be right now.
I got a question for you. What's the counter for Electro Giant? But because holy crap, that card is really annoying to play when I queue up. And I obviously having a tower helps, but what if you don't have a tower? Even if you do, like, what's the counter play?
So the biggest thing I think with Electro Giant is you never want to overspend on offense if you feel like they're going to set up an Electro Giant push. If you guys are both ticking to 10, you could send in maybe something really cheap opposite lane if they drop an Electro Giant in the back, but you really do want to start setting up your offense, or your defense, I mean, because the biggest thing is that Electro Giants, not only are they so beefy and tanky, but they're really, really slow. So their opponent that's running them is going to have lightning a lot of the time to help kind of clean up the stuff that you're dropping defensively. So what you need to do with Electro Giant is obviously you want to have a building. If you don't have a building, you need to have a deck that has some sort of ability to pull that Electro Giant, whether it's Cannon Cart when it comes off of wheels, whether it's Fisherman, what have you. You need to have something to distract that big boy. And then the biggest thing about him is you got to kill his support cards. Your towers will actually do enough damage for the most part if you're able to pull him to the middle, but you have to make sure that he can't pile up bombers and princes and mini P.E.K.K.A.s and what have you, or dragons behind, because that's when you're going to be in trouble.
Okay, fair enough. To work on that.
E-Giant is actually underpowered right now, says Problematic. I actually don't think Electro Giant is, and then right after that you see Angel saying that Electro Giant
I see like
nerf.
5 people saying that it needs a nerf. I mean, welcome to Twitch chat. It's all over the place, as usual, but
that's right. Yeah,
everyone has their opinion.
I think Electro Giant's actually in a pretty good place right now. I do think it's a very strong card in the game, but I do think that if you have a building and you play it correctly, you should be pretty adequate in defending it. So we are waiting for the match to start here just to answer people's questions. We are working through this first round of the bracket, and a big part of that, guys, is because we are in this format, this dual format like we talked about. So if you win a game, you have to reset your deck completely. You cannot use any of those cards for the rest of the set. If you lose a game, you can use any of those cards again. You could run the same deck back. And what that kind of leads to is a little bit of downtime in between each set, right? You don't want people to know all the things that you played. You don't want to run back the same stuff. Maybe you learned something in the prior set that you want to, execute in the next one. So that's a big part of what we're doing right now. It's one of the reasons we had pre-submitted decks in CRL, but as you all know, in the community and in the pro scene, nobody wants pre-submitted decks anywhere, so we got rid of them. Yeah. And this is a part of that. It's not a growing pain. This is just a part of not having a deck that's submitted already.
That's really interesting, actually, to hear, because, a lot of similar trading card games, like style of games, there is that pre-submitted deck that you're talking about, but it sounds like Clash Royale, not the case. All right, anyways, enough rambling on there. We got a game that we are finally jumping into. As Legolas versus, how do you pronounce that name?
Furkan. We call him Furkan, one of the better.
Okay.
Very, very good player out in the world. He definitely loves to play in the skies. He's a great Lava Hound player, but today, or at least in this game, it looks like he's going to be going with Royal Recruits and most likely Royal Hogs. And I think at the bottom of your screen, you might be seeing the same thing, which is kind of fascinating because yesterday we were talking about how Royal Recruits plus Royal Hogs is really strong in the meta right now, but we didn't really see much of it at all in the competitive scene yesterday, and I'm glad that that's kind of changed today. I mean, that's another part of competition on the weekends is one day you'll see maybe a ton of one win condition, and then the next day you'll see none of it. So we'll see if this is the trend starting off our Sunday.
Yeah, Royal Hogs in response now from Legolas. The building aggro, only one gets to the main tower, but Zappy's put down as well to help things out, but spreading some damage. Ultimately going to be some good defense from the side of Furkan, but you also saw the fireball from Furkan coming out in response to the initial Royal Hogs, but here comes those Royal Guards, as you had mentioned, which we are seeing now today. We'll see how useful it actually is for Furkan. Making a push forward. Legolas building up that elixir, and he's going to take some chip damage, a little more on that right side tower, but ultimately will be able to throw it off. But here's the Hogs now. Does he have another fireball? He does. He's going to pull off those Hogs.
Really, really nice offense there by Furkan. I mean, hitting that heal spirit on the left-hand side made it so that Legolas had to sit back, take damage in both lanes. He could have overspent and defended on the left-hand side, but then he knows he would have been punished by those Royal Hogs coming in, not able to get the fireball down. So sometimes you just got to eat a bunch of damage to conserve elixir. And as you guys can see, you're not looking in a mirror. It's just they're doing the exact same thing at the same time. Goblin cages, then flying machines, then recruits split in the back. And we'll see how Furkan wants to contain or maintain. Oh, wow. That is a rough fireball off into nowhere. And when you talk about this deck, dual lane pressure, flying machines, zappies, Royal Hogs, that's game over, man. You cannot miss a fireball at this point in the game and expect to win. So Furkan getting a bit of a gift given to him by his opponent there. A fireball off to no man's land. That'll seal the deal.
Yeah, Legolas just giving in at that point right there. Match is officially going to be over, and perhaps a slip of the finger. But either way, fun to see the Royal Guard spawning on either side right there, start marching towards each other. But yeah, as soon as the Hogs came out for the side of Furkan, not much that Legolas could do, especially with that missed fireball. That's just that'll be the end of you, and we've all been there, right? I know I've been there plenty.
Yes, 100%. I've been there. I've missed a lot of spells in my day. I'm sure I missed some yesterday when I was playing. I think what was really nice about what we just saw was that Legolas was going for what you need to do. He was going for the predictive fireball, center of the map. I think he was actually looking for the zappies, or maybe a flying machine dropped up high and in the center. Problem is, he was just a second too late. Or maybe he was too early, whatever you want to call it. It definitely looked like it was too late, though. The Zappies already worked themselves away. Fireball comes in, and at that point, you know, there's just no way to bounce back. While we are watching this game, just to let you guys know what else is going on out there, Wero did work his way through Wallace, so he'll be facing off against Osama. Oh, yes, thank you so much there. Wero and Osama are going to be at the top there. We'll get to them in just a little bit. Adriel and DVJ, two of our successful, less-known players that both were really dominant in their games yesterday. Adriel did some really fun stuff there when you talk about the decks that he brought to play and kind of sniping his opponent. Paradox and Nicola going to be at the bottom of your screen there. And then as you guys are watching with us, Legolas up one game, or excuse me, Furkan up one game on Legolas. A big-time missed fireball. Was it nerves? Was it a slip of the finger? Who knows?
Well, we're not going to see another fireball here in Game 2 because, you know, it's not possible, at least for Furkan, I guess. It could be possible for Legolas still, if he chooses to run that as we go back to. But that'll be interesting, as always, to see now the change-up when it comes to what they're going to be running. But yeah, again, to reiterate, now that we've hit that round of 8, we are going to be covering each series individually. So we talked about those other matchups right there. We're going to get to them, guys, and we got a lot of Clash Royale coming at you for the next couple hours plus.
I think what's really interesting about what we're doing now when we've moved through the entire qualifiers yesterday, obviously there's way too many matches to even begin to touch like 5% of them. Today, even with just 16 players coming through, round 1 would have taken us hours. So now that we're on to round 2 and we've narrowed it down to 8 players, this is an interesting moment where all the players that are remaining, they can hang out, they can turn us on Twitch, you can turn us on YouTube, and they can watch their competitors. They can watch and see what they like to play, what they like to favor, what decks they've been playing well with today, what kind of timing. Are they in the mood for something a little bit more aggressive? Are they playing a little more passive? All of those things. Or like we were talking about when you asked at the top of that last match, you know, what have we seen a lot this weekend? And what did, you know, I think we should have seen more of yesterday was like the Royal Recruits plus Royal Hogs. And here we go. We get a lot of it early on today. So does that mean that that's the way that the meta is going to favor Royal Masters on this Sunday? Who knows? A lot of stuff out there that the other competitors get to get a little bit of a in on. Yeah, and the Royal Giant certainly being another one that we haven't seen yet, but certainly expectations to see as we move on. Maybe we'll see that here in Game 2 of this series, but... I'm trying to decide what it is about the fact that we haven't seen Royal Giant. I'm thinking maybe yesterday people tried Royal Giant, Fireball, Log, Mother Witch, and Fisherman all too early on in the day, and then they found themselves getting punished for it in games 2 and 3. People knowing that you don't have Fireball and Log means that you have to run a lot of other cards that maybe are a little bit less opportune in the meta. Arrows is a really great card to use, but it only falls into a few decks. But if you don't have Fireball available, you might need to run Arrows for good trades. So here we go. Game number 2 here between Legolas and Furkan. Furkan going to take a page out of Legolas's book and rock Mortar here, while Legolas running Hog Rider. Yeah, we see the early win condition right there with the Hog Rider. Going to be used and showing off his own log in the process as well to start cycling through and get that elixir back to 10. But the stair game begins. Knight in the back.
And the Mega Minion also coming out from the other side. Some offense, though. Miner put in there, but a nice response coming out to put the stop on. And Miner's only going to get a little bit of chip damage, as the Musketeer will take out the Mega Minion.
Yeah, one of the things that we saw yesterday, and there you go, Legolas obviously going to run Mortar as well. He is very, very good at playing that card, is Igor and Lapakati. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, or them, I should say. Trains with them with Mortar. And interesting thing here is Royal Delivery. That 3 elixir card that Legolas is rocking, really, really popular yesterday once Fireball was out of use, or if you didn't want to use Fireball early on. It's just a great, cheaper response to help out with some air defense, help out with a big push coming across the bridge, and I think that's a big testament to our format. You know, Royal Delivery, not super popular in the meta right now, but has been very popular here at Royale Masters this weekend.
Yeah. So still waiting on the final card to be shown from Legolas, and a couple more on the side of Firkin. As another minor use. It's a quick night response, but 50 more seconds until that double elixir comes in, and once again the mortar going to be put down. So get some damage on that. Oh, there's an earthquake. Okay, being played by Firkin. So we see another spell there of his that he had hidden for the time being. The Hog coming out for, but nice building aggro. Going to prevent the Hog from doing good damage on that left tower. Although it's still taking some in an earthquake. That is the final card shown now by Legolas. So both sides running the earthquake as well.
Yeah, this is these are two actually pretty fascinating decks. You can see Furkan here going to go mostly for minor chip damage here to move out through the rest of this game, because he knows he needs to hold that earthquake to keep, you know, there it is right there, get damage on top of that mortar that will be played offensively for Legolas, because he doesn't have to worry about a tower-seeking unit. And wow, a nice connection there for Legolas on the tower. Gets one big shot in. Hog gets stopped by the Dark Prince, but that's trouble already. Furkan down to 782 HP. Legolas fighting for his life here, and it's paying off well.
Yeah. He's going to send the Hog Rider in once again. Plenty of elixir to work with, though. As the Electro Wizard comes slamming down to the ground, as well as the Mortar to block the Dark Prince, trying to hold the Hog off. He gets out of 272, but will keep the tower alive just barely. So the overtime phase is coming, but Legolas fighting strong and trying to force that third game here in this best set of 3. As another Hog, is he going to get in there? I don't think he has a stopper for it. Oh, the log! And there's the attack.
Yeah, really, really nicely constructed decks on both sides of the board. I think one of the issues, though, is when you're coming into, at least this matchup specifically, when you have Hog Rider in play, you need to hold that Mortar as a defensive response. Earthquake being in your opponent's hand as well can be very frustrating. But really, when you kind of narrow all those things down, you take the Mortar out of play offensively, it all comes down to minor chip damage. And when it's going to be a Miner versus a Hog, because the Mortars are both used for offensive pressure or to hold things defensively, the Hog's always going to win, really, at least at this level. Maybe at a lower level, you're able to catch every single one of those Miners, you're able to keep those Hogs at bay, but there's absolutely no way that you're going to be able to stop these Hog pushes plus Earthquake every single time and make up for that damage or that lost damage with minor chip. Unfortunately for Furkan, at least.
So, to be clear now, so Legolas, he could actually go back to Fireball, correct? Because in his win, he was not running Fireball. He ran in the first game, which he lost.
Yeah.
So, that's an ability you certainly wouldn't be surprised to see maybe in his third deck, whatever it comes to be. But, yeah, again, obviously now both sides, they both have the win under the belt. Again, to reiterate, they cannot use the cards that they were using when they won their match. They have to swap that up. So, Legolas, obviously the Hog Rider win condition, no longer going to be the case. Perhaps going to go back to the Hogs themselves, the Royal Hogs, or even, like we've been talking about, the Royal Giant. But I wanted to actually go back real quickly to the Royal Giant conversation that we're having right before that game started. What about the idea, perhaps there's some strategy around where when you're in a Swiss format, more of a group stage format, where you have a lot of matches to be playing that you know that's going to be played against all these different players, is there something to be said that, you know, maybe seeing the Royal Giant for there where it's maybe a little bit easier of a strategy to perform, that it's going to be more effective against just all these players, not having to think about what they're going to be doing as much. Where in this bracket format where it's top 8 now, you have a little more research on your specific opponent, so maybe you want to run more unique things. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I think yesterday the other big thing that came into play is to put it as I guess, lightly as possible is how much you might respect your opponent. There was so many no names out there that the best players in the world are just going to run what is the strongest in the meta or what their comfort decks are. When you get to even narrowing things down to when we were at 4-0, 5-0, and those competitors started running into each other, it felt like a lot more analysis came into play with what you're talking about, trying to keep your opponents guessing, trying to win that chess match. Well, if you're thinking ahead 3 steps, I got to think ahead 5 steps. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that in our Sunday games as opposed to our Saturday games, just because there's so many players out there on Saturday that don't have analysts working for them. They don't have teams behind them. They don't have coaches. They don't have years and years of experience playing against the best players in the world. Some of them are probably even one tricks, right? They're like, well, I'm really good at playing this specific deck, but when it comes to a duel-like format, they succeed in ladder. They don't succeed in competition.
Now what do I do? Oh,
yeah, crap. Exactly. Exactly. So, looking at what was played in these 2 games, you know, things that are not available for Furkan. You talk about Royal Hogs, Royal Recruits, Fireball's not available, Goblin Cage is not available. So looking at what Furkan's options are and thinking about what his opponent has played Log and Earthquake. Those are the 2 big spells that he used when he won with that Hog Rider deck. I think Furkan maybe even goes to the skies at this point. He's known to play up there, so that could be trouble. And then Legolas on the other side of it, he still can play Royal Hogs. He lost game number 1 when he was playing Royal Hogs. His opponent does not have Fireball available. He does have Log, but he doesn't have Fireball Cage. So something interesting there to think about. I personally, if I was Legolas, would go to something Royal, but I'm not a pro, so maybe that is the obvious choice, and he's going to think 1 step ahead of that.
Yeah, that goes back to that the mind games. That's that phrase of like his Jesus commentators especially, and you know, the second mind game, and then the so on. So it's like sometimes it is best to just be simple about it, right? Like certain strategies are good for a reason, and don't overthink it. And I can certainly see that coming into play when it comes to a game like Clash Royale, but. Yeah, we'll see what limit they decide to go to. Of course, Legolas could go back to like the Royal Guards, for example. He could bust that back out in Game 3.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things that we used to love seeing back when it wasn't in dual format is if someone lost with a deck, they would just copy their opponent's deck and run that back, or they'd play the same deck that they lost just again, because like you said, sometimes you just keep it simple, and that's actually the most confusing thing. I saw here in the chat, Chaos Kid looks like he might have answered the question, but Problem Solved saying, yo, if I miss this weekend's qualifier, can I join next week, or do I have to wait till November? You can join next week. You can join every single Saturday leading up to our last chance qualifier. So there's 2 more weekends after this where absolutely anyone in the entire world can submit themselves to be in the running. And you want to get in early, right? You missed weekend number 1, but that's okay. There's still 2 more plus the LCQ where you can accumulate those points to make it onto our playoffs that are happening in November. So make sure you're following Royale Masters on Discord and on Twitter. That way you can figure out how you can be involved with what we're doing.
Yeah, and I see people asking about where can I watch the gameplay. I don't know if we're talking about specifically for day 1, but there is a YouTube channel link below that you can click, and it is on the YouTube side as far as the video for Royal Masters, so definitely check it out there. There's a full 4-hour broadcast wherever or whatever it was, but that'll be the case on the YouTube for these days to come and this tournament throughout. So definitely look forward to see some good coverage there, and obviously some top tier play that's coming out from this Royal Masters event. So it sounds like the players just taking their time a little bit as far as, again, they want to make sure that they have their decks chosen correctly. And now we're jumping in. We see a miner early from Legolas, going to get some chip damage, but a defensive miner by Furkan in response, and now it's going to go marching down the other way.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about there. If you see arrows coming into play for Furkan, knowing that he doesn't have Fireball, he still wants some good splash damage out there that won't take all the units off the board, but with arrows plus maybe a minor hit or another spell, they will be in a good position. So minor wall breakers, bottom of your screen, top of your screen. Like, I was actually thinking we might be going to the skies, and Furkan looking like he might be making me look good on broadcast. Thanks, Furkan.
Good old Inferno Dragon. That's one that I personally love, my trusty Inferno Dragon. Going to be marching on down, and there's the Lava Dragon in front as well. So let's see, the Hunter already down for the side of Legolas, of course, but it's going to take some damage on his tower naturally. However, it's going to be able to clear it up fairly effectively in the end as the Inferno Dragon also falls. So, but getting some information out there, at least for Legolas. Legolas has also gone through his old deck.
Yeah, Legolas here looking like he was anticipating Furkan to go play Lava Miner plus Guards. Guards obviously getting their buff. Those 3 Elixir Guards are so strong now, and they're a lot harder to take off the board spell-wise. We'll see if he ever uses Poison on that. But when you look at the responses, it's very clear that Legolas had an idea in mind. He thought Furkan was going to play Lava Hound, so what does he have? He has Tesla to pull the Lava Hound in. He has Hunter to get all that damage in. His Valkyrie was dropped perfectly to protect the Hunter from the Miner. And of course, the Snowball, a great, cheap way to slow everything down, including that Inferno that's going to be behind the lava, take those pups out of play. So Furkan going to have to play through a matchup here. Legolas doing exactly what we've been talking about, man, which is strategizing, moving forward, keeping your opponents guessing, and innovating. This is not a traditional Miner wall breakers deck, but when you talk about playing against Lava Hound, this is about as good as it gets. Great predictive Miner there to get on top of the Hunter. I don't think it's going to actually do the job that he wanted, but you love the idea.
Yeah, he knew that it was coming. It was like a rinse and repeat, like a lot of Clash Royales is sometimes, and it's about predicting that. And Legolas doing it well, like you said, maybe not exactly how he hoped for, but you could tell he is on point in terms of predicting right there. You see the balloon, it's going to get a little bit closer to do some damage with the bomb after, but good hold once again using that Tesla to go the other direction. Here come the guards marching the other way, though, and that Lava Dragon spawned in the way back for Furkan, as the Hunter already coming out in the early response, and there's the Inferno Dragon. So again, in another rinse and repeat, that Tesla, I'm sure, will be happening as it gets a little bit closer as well. The wall breakers being put down for Legolas, though, but the nice arrows to clear. And there's the Tesla as expected.
Yeah, a lot of value given there, and this is actually where things are going to start to be trouble for Legolas, which is why you saw him cycling those cards so early on. Again, this is going to be a beautiful defense. The idea that he had here was he knew that a big Lava Hound push was going to come in, and he did not go on offense. What did he do? He cycled his two most expensive cards and his two most valuable cards early on. So he gets Valkyrie and Hunter in his out of play immediately, back in cycle, so that by the time that the lava crosses the bridge and the balloon comes down, he can get that second Hunter down. And that's what it's going to be. That's going to be the name of the game the entire time, is getting as many Hunters down and making sure he doesn't get too aggressive on offense. And look at that, a beautiful wall breaker connection with that Miner push.
Yeah, finally using the offensive Hunter, and exactly as you pointed out, down to 1,100 damage offensively from the tower. But now this Tesla, it's going to tank the Lava Dragon, which will spawn in the middle this time around, and a Hunter right behind it to clear out the balloon, and the Lava Dragon after the fact. So yeah, Legolas certainly feeling like he has a good advantage as we hit about a minute 10 remaining. Guards put on the other side of the Miner, so he's trying to switch things up a little bit as Furkan kind of go the other direction. Defensive Miner from Legolas. Wall breakers, can they make it through? The block for the Hunter? No, it's not enough. The arrow's coming out in defense, and Furkan able to take those out before they connect to the tower. But now we're at ×3 elixir.
You see here, Furkan now going to change lanes. That was a really smart play of the defensive Miner there from Legolas, because he knew the Valkyrie was going to have to stay in play to protect his Hunter. You don't ever want to play the skeletons on top of the Miner to predict, because it can just get zapped out of play. And of course, you need that Valkyrie in cycle to protect your Hunter if they're going to search for it with your Miner. So Furkan doing a really good job, as you'd expect with him with Lava Hound, getting some damage in this opposite lane. But now we're getting deep into triple elixir, and this becomes an interesting cycle race with these Teslas. You know, Legolas can keep his damage up, he can keep his offensive pressure up, but he can keep getting Hunters and Teslas down more quickly than Furkan can create offense. So he's going to just keep sending in Miners, getting chip damage. He's going to open up some room there with the Snowball, and he's going to be able to adequately defend for this next 8 seconds. Looks like Legolas is going to be taking this to the next round.
Yep, looks like it is, as the time's going to run out, and will win in terms of the life pool on the tower. So yeah, the switch up there from Furkan, it's a clever idea, but that just goes back to Legolas was ready for it. He did enough. That it was that one wall breaker attack, right, that ultimately won him the game, that he was able to get through where he put the offensive, where he got the Hunter in front and allowed to tank just enough, it seemed like, for the wall breakers to get through and get the damage. And although no kill in the tower, that's not what was needed in the end. Just enough damage to get the victory. So Legolas coming back, winning that series 2-1.
Yeah, the biggest thing there with those wall breakers connecting is that made Furkan uncomfortable to continue playing in the exact same lane over and over. Because at that point, Legolas doesn't even really need to get wall breakers to connect again on that tower. If they're playing in the same lane, he can just go for minor poison damage every single time and then still defend well with the Hunter plus Tesla and cycle all the way back around to a Valkyrie. So what happened there with those wall breakers connecting, not only were they perfectly timed, I think that Furkan was trying to save some elixir, hoping that they'd get taken off the board or arrows weren't in cycle, but the moment they connected, he has to switch lanes, and it's a little bit too late at that point if your opponent is as good as all these opponents are going to be. He's going to be able to defend well enough, take a good amount of damage in his opposite tower, but get enough offensive pressure to hold that lead, and that's exactly what Legolas did with a very, very well-constructed deck when you talk about playing against Furkan.
Did you like the Lava Dragon strategy there? Okay,
Hey,
I know, guys. I was saying dragon. I apologize. Lava Hound.
There's a lot of cards in this game. They have a lot of names. And,
it looks like a dragon. I mean, I'm not wrong, right?
Definitely not wrong, man. So Adriel just continuing to move through his opponents. He 2-1s DVJ after 2-0ing Furia, and he's going to be on to our semifinals where he will meet the winner of Osama versus Wero. We haven't started that set yet, and of course at the bottom of your screen you see that Legolas has already worked through Furkan as Nicola and Paradox are about to face off. So 2 matches already decided, 2 yet to happen. And it'll be really interesting to see Wero versus Osama. You talk about Osama being given that loss yesterday by Wero, and he was still able to squeeze into our competition this Sunday, I should say, our weekly finals this Sunday, and maybe looking for a little bit of revenge. That should be a great set to watch. Paradox and Nicola on the other side of it. Paradox finally able to deliver a loss to Inthrill. Inthrill yesterday in Group A was just untouchable, 6-0. Just like Titan, Nicola actually had a loss going into this weekend, or going into today, but was able to take down Tico. And yeah, him and Paradox still waiting to face off.
Yeah, I do apologize again. I know we had kept reiterating about the top 8. We're going to be casting everything. Unfortunately, Adriel and DVJ, I guess they got a little bit ahead of themselves, and they were antsy to play. They were excited to play, and so they played their series. So didn't get the chance to cover that one. But from here on out, I believe that's the plan. As long as the players, work with us here for this tournament. So
yeah, they do what they'd like for the most part, but hopefully they will. Loki the Goat asking how much does the #1 player get this weekend? He gets $2,400. So pretty dang good when you talk about just a couple days worth of work at Clash Royale. So here we go, Paradox and Nicola. Paradox going to open with Nicola going to open with a Lava in the back. First play.
Lava Hound going to come down for Nicola. As we see on the right side, it's going to be an aggressive play from Paradox. So, offensive miner, support around it, and we'll get a nice bit of chip damage in there before having to play some defense on his side, because that Lava Hound's now starting to do some good damage, but the Elite Barbarian's going to be aggroed over to the cannon.
Yeah, a little bit surprising there from Nicola to just eat that entire push on the other side, and that zap is just enough to take the Mega Minion out of play. We're going to make it so this Lava Hound actually becomes that much more impactful, and after seeing the Miner Valkyrie, you were thinking it was probably going to be some sort of Mortar. Now we could still see Graveyard, but Graveyard plus Miner doesn't really make a lot of sense, so probably just going to be some interesting Miner chip and Mortar damage here from Paradox.
This is so frustrating. You're just like, no, it's pretty much the end of your tower. Not much you can do at that point. And yeah, that goes back to, as you pointed out from the very beginning, it's conscious decision by Nicola there to not defend essentially, instead go offensive on the left side. And sure, they got a good amount of damage down to 622, but now it's, can they finish off the job? That's going to be the tough ask, because Paradox is going to be looking to play some heavy defense now. Valkyrie and the Mega Minion are out.
Yeah, you hit the nail right there on the head. Paradox really going to need to play some incredible and immaculate defense here, because as he gets into a 2-tower game, that's where Nicola's going to get the advantage, not only because his deck is heavier when you talk about having Lava Hound in the game, but when you talk about trying to take a tower out with Mortar and Miner chip damage after it's become a 2-tower game against something like this, it can become really, really difficult. So while it might look or feel like Paradox is in a good position, this is where the wheels might start falling off for him as we get into double elixir.
Yeah, getting double elixir, and now the tower tied with one another as the Valkyrie is going to get some more damage. Never mind, dragged over to the middle, as now the Lava Hound on the right side with that Inferno Dragon behind to follow it up. The Mega Minion is going to be able to take out the Lava Hound, getting some good attacks into it at least, as the Baby Dragon is trying to assist, but it's going to be doing some more damage on that tower. Mine is in.
Flawlessly timed Miner sneaks in there, makes it so the Fireball has to come out. No other response is going to do enough to the Pups and the Dragons while they're getting tanked for by that Miner. Paradox now going heavy offense into some E-Barbs. A Naked Mortar, it's never a good feeling, but sometimes it's the best option to just create a response out of your opponent, which is what he did there. But when you talk about that trade, it doesn't actually end up coming out in Paradox's favor.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like he has enough to stop this Lava Hound. Ultimately, another Baby Dragon, Inferno Dragon protection. The Miner is going to be aggroed away from Paradox, and doesn't get much damage himself on the blue tower. So that Lava Hound is eventually going to explode here, and the Inferno Dragon's going to take out the building there on the ground. The Valkyrie is also going to try to aggro, trying to keep that tower alive, but another Lava Hound, And there's the E-Barbs.
This is gonna be a 3-crown. It's gonna be a 3-crown, man. You got the Lava Hound tanking for those guards that are on the King Tower. Guards just going to town with that second lava in the pocket. So I think what was so brilliant about that is that while Paradox was so occupied with defending his Princess Tower, Nicola saw that a naked lava in the pocket would actually defend those guards or tank for those guards on the King Tower, and then it becomes an unwinnable situation. You're not going to be able to defend adequately Princess side, and you're not going to be able to do enough to the guards. So really, really well played there, and that's basically what we saw was kind of the writing on the wall as that game moved forward. Nicola was going to sacrifice all the damage to create all the offense, because once it got into a 2-tower game, it was able to survive. Once it got into double and triple elixir, there's basically no way he loses.
Yeah, the mortar early on seemed like it was going to be an issue for Nicola, but it seems like the adjustments came in after that first tower went down. Of course, got the trade eventually, and then, as you pointed out, the guard play to aggro that King's Tower and allow for the easy sneak and ultimately get the 3-crown, in the end for Nicola. Very well played. So going to be swapping up some deck now for Nicola specifically, as we're going to jump right back into it. These players are fast. I like that.
You love to see it. You love to see it. Yeah, very, very well played there in game number 1 by Nicola. Paradox, though, going to try to bounce back here in game number 2. Doesn't want to get eliminated, as this is a single elimination competition today.
Ram Rider. You see a bit of a condition there, as out comes the Royal Ghost initially, but eventually killed off. But still some nice damage done by Paradox early on. Showing off the log as well. Bandit play from the side of Nicola. Some more information. There's that Fisherman. This is the first one we've got to see on broadcast yet, but as you've pointed out, a pretty popular card right now overall.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be the Royal Giant deck, top of your screen, run by Paradox, who is from Russia. And then on the other side of it, Nicola, going to be doing Ram Rider in the form of bridge spam. The Serbian is happy to cycle this P.E.K.K.A in the back, and if you guys don't know P.E.K.K.A very well and you have the elixir to spend it, you don't have to worry about an offensive push coming in. You always want to cycle your P.E.K.K.A in your weaker lane. That always makes it less appetizing for your opponent to go in on, and they usually have to change things up once they've already gotten some significant damage on that tower. So Nicola doing exactly what he needs to here early on, as a Royal Giant at the bridge would have been a crazy overspend, and there you go, Lightning in as well, cleaning up all those utility troops.
Yeah, Lightning Wizard going to be duking it out here. Eventually goes down the Hog, spawns, and some aggression back the way of Paradox favored. So yeah, the P.E.K.K.A unable to get really much building damage in there. And Bandit play, though, once again.
Yeah, this is going to be really tough, I think, moving forward for Paradox when you talk about being able to stop this Ram Rider. So Ram Rider is going to come out to slow down the Royal Giant. But as we get into double and triple elixir, the only real response that Paradox has to the Ram Rider is either overspending, and even there you saw a log came in, Royal Ghost came down, and skeletons, and it still touched the tower. He's going to have to use his Fisherman, but that Fisherman is going to get taken out of play every single time by the Lightning. So Nicola having a very, very good matchup when you talk about being able to stop the Royal Giant with the P.E.K.K.A, be able to stun or slow the Royal Giant with Snowball, with Ram Rider, with E-Wiz. And then when you talk about being able to stop your opponent's responses, it's going to be really difficult for Paradox to do that moving forward.
So it sounded like on paper feeling good for Nicola, but of course comes down to that execution in the end, as there's that Fisherman going to actually pull the Ram Rider, as you're talking about. This time is able to execute and do it successfully. So good defense. The Royal Giant, meanwhile, on the other side, is going to get some damage on that right tower, favoring Paradox. Another Fisherman play. This Fisherman, he's a king over here. He's just taking everyone left and right.
Yeah, he's doing some work there, and honestly, I feel like that was a bit of a misplay by Nicola. You know what your opponent's running, you know what their win condition is. The only thing that you really have to worry about is that Royal Giant, right? Then what do you have for the Royal Giant? You always have the P.E.K.K.A. So you need to hold the P.E.K.K.A to stop the RG, and then if you're worried about the Fisherman pulling your P.E.K.K.A away, you just need to protect it, right? That's all you got to do is protect your P.E.K.K.A, make sure she's on top of your RG. So maybe he'll see and there you go. That's exactly what we're talking about, right? So Bandit comes down first, P.E.K.K.A should come down second. There it is.
There you go.
And it was because you saw that Royal Giant come down, and right after that was the Fisherman looking for the P.E.K.K.A. This is pretty crazy to me. It felt like this was a matchup that would have gone in favor of Nicola, but that one P.E.K.K.A cycle to the opposite lane, that's going to do it for him.
Sure. Just perhaps maybe a mental breakdown there as far as, just forgetting in the moment, but either way, Nicola, we eventually saw exactly what you were talking about coming out. It just was a little bit too late at that time. So yeah, Paradox taking full advantage, and they take game number 2 to force what is now going to be a game 3 here in this series. So once again, with the dual format, and obviously if you won with a certain deck, you cannot use those cards. And so keeping in mind that Royal Giant now to play for Paradox, but of course a great win condition, especially paired up with that Fisherman, as we talked about going into today.
It's like Storm TW in the chat. What's up, my man? It's been a very long time. Good to see you here. Hope you're enjoying Royale Masters here with the other 700 people watching. Great to see you guys all. What are you thinking about this matchup between Paradox and Nicola? Going to get into game number 3 here. Let us know in the chat. Who do you got? If there was a poll going, would you be bidding on Nicola, or do you think Paradox is going to take things home? If you look at this here, talk about game number 1. Paradox running RG, finding some victories, finding some success there. Excuse me, in game number 2, which is what we just saw, finding success with the RG. Nicola felt like he had all the responses. He had ways to slow the RG down with the EWIZ, with the Ram Rider, the Snowball. P.E.K.K.A is obviously the response that you want. He had the Bandit there also to make sure that that would get pulled instead of the P.E.K.K.A if Fisherman came down right afterwards, which is what we saw Paradox do. That's exactly what you have to do when you're playing against P.E.K.K.A with Royal Giant. But just was not able to sequence things the way that he needed to, and wasn't really ever on offense after that first couple minutes. Looking back to game number 1, though, Nicola went to the skies. So Fireball, Miner, Zap, E-Barbs, all that out of play, which leaves him with a lot of available options.
It kind of going back to, maybe an older format idea, but the idea of, hey, it worked for my opponent, why not use it myself? That's what kind of makes me wonder if Nicola, we could see perhaps that Royal Giant Fisherman combo specifically in play for them as a win condition going into game number 3. And if that's the case, do we see maybe that P.E.K.K.A response? The mind games from both players definitely happening right here. A lot of people favoring Nicola, though, in chat, no matter what, despite this being a game 3. I don't know if I saw anyone type out Paradox. Okay, I saw one.
You're right. I see. Yeah, there's one up there for Paradox, but basically everyone going for Nicola here, and we'll just have to see what happens there. Like I said, I did not love the way that he played that matchup. Maybe I'm wrong about it. You guys can let me know in the chat. Am I wrong? Is that a matchup that's actually in favor of RG? Because it really didn't feel like it. I did see someone say that they didn't have the barrel to block the Fisherman, which I do agree with, but he still had other options to block the Fisherman. He still could have early cycled the Royal Ghost. He could get the Bandit down, which is what you saw him do later on, which then provided enough for that P.E.K.K.A. But really, it just came down to him cycling the P.E.K.K.A when he should have cycled the Royal Ghost or something that wasn't as important, right? Even in that moment, you could cycle the Electro Wizard, which is a little bit more expensive than the Royal Ghost. It's going to be a little bit less effective offensively if your opponent ignores it, but still, you're maintaining that advantage that you have when it's just the 2 decks on paper. So very, very well played there by Paradox, looking at the matchup and figuring out a way through it. And Nicola needs to make sure that he's using those advantages that he has as he goes into game number 3.
Yeah, so thinking about the decks here, we jumped into game 2 pretty quickly, but now with it being the 3rd game, understandably, both players trying to be a little more creative as far as crafty, even in terms of what they're going to be running. But as I say that, it's like we knew it was happening. Here we go. As far as game number 3, this is it, single elimination. We'll see what happens. Defensive Miner, used earlier there by Paradox, as he puts a flying machine in the back.
And going right back to Ram Rider. Okay, Ram Rider, Royal Ghost with Mother Witch. A little interesting here, and Paradox looking like he could be going to Lava Miner. We'll find out.
You see that Lava Hound again. Obviously successful in the previous series that we had there. There's a Fisherman defense.
Yeah, this is an interesting deck that Nicola's running, because usually you see those cards, Royal Ghost, Fisherman, Barb Barrel, Mother Witch, all with Royal Giant, but instead decides to go with Ram Rider once again, and interesting play there. I'm not exactly sure what the mentality is behind that. Royal Ghost, or excuse me, Royal Giant would have been nice for him to have in this game, as it does create just a little bit more offensive presence, and it makes your opponent have to spend defensively, whereas the Ram Rider, I feel, is just a little bit less effective on that front.
Yeah, Mother Witch doing what she can to help defend against that Lava Hound. Going to be killed off, though, and this defense not looking so good for the side of Nicola.
That's kind of what we're talking about there. You see the Ram Rider basically ignored, does bring that tower down to 1,700 on the right-hand side. If it was a Royal Giant opposite lane, it would be a much different story here, but 651 to 1714, and Nicola in an uphill battle early on.
So still 2 more cards to be seen for Nicola. On the other side, Paradox still holding on to that 1. As far as what we've yet to see to be exactly sure what we're going to be happening here. Royal Ghost, and there's a P.E.K.K.A. So Nicola, P.E.K.K.A marching down. Saw it last game, but of course in the losing effort, so bringing it back though for game 3.
So with Goblin Cage out of cycle, it's going to be about guards being Very distracting here for that P.E.K.K.A. Oh, and there you go. Nice pull with the Miner. Miner comes in. P.E.K.K.A. now no longer in front of the Ram Rider. And now the P.E.K.K.A. going to be a lot easier to deal with, as is the Ram Rider. Nice Lightning comes in to get some damage on the tower and allows the Ram Rider to connect. But I really like that play, making this P.E.K.K.A. a little bit more manageable. But we'll see. Still might be towered down. I see someone asking in the chat, Andrew, why do you say you're giving away $5,000? Is this some sort of clickbait? No, it's true. We're giving away $5,000 today here in the RoyaleMSTRS qualifier, our first week of qualifiers.
You just have to win some Clash Royale matches. That's all.
Yeah, just, like 10 of them, 15 of them.
Just have to beat the best of the best players in the world. Anyways, we're going to be going into overtime here as 5 seconds and counting. So this time the Lava Hound spawned on the other side for Paradox, of course. You're going to start applying that pressure, but just like we saw before, the P.E.K.K.A.'s up. So will we see that defensive Miner again? Rolling him to the middle, similar to last time, and what kind of counterplay from Nicola, if so. But that's a large flying army on the left side.
Yeah, that is a huge push coming in. Ewa's going to come down, but that's going to get eaten off the board almost instantaneously. Now that Inferno Dragon's on tower, that's
it.
Yep, Nicola just not doing what he needed to do there. Maybe he cycles the P.E.K.K.A. towards his Princess Tower so that Paradox wants to go for King, but that was just kind of tough stuff when you talked about the matchup in general. Not a lot of responses to the skies, especially when you saw that pile-up happening there. When you know that the big spell is Lightning, it's easy for you to just stack all those squishy units on top of each other because that Lightning is only going to take 3 of them out, and one of them is going to hit the Lava Hound, so it's only going to take 2 of them out of play. So that Ewiz has to come down, but there's just no way it survives, and there's no actual safe place to play that Ewiz to keep it on top of the Inferno Dragon and away from the Skeleton Dragons. So really, really well orchestrated push there by Paradox.
All the Paradox doubters in chat. I wonder what they think about that now. Obviously, a lot of people favoring Nicola there for good reason. Of course, both great players in the end, but well played by Paradox coming through and making that flying army of death, as I'll give it a name there, and gets a victory.
It's never what you want to see coming across the bridge
No.
when you have very, very little to respond to. So Paradox and Legolas will be facing off here in our, I believe that will be our semifinals. Yes, look at that. Semifinals between Paradox, Legolas, Adriel. Still rocking strong as Wero and Osama is going to be our last best of 3 here in our quarterfinals. Legolas, Paradox, and Adriel still playing very, very well today. And let me see if I can take a look here at what happened to these guys along the way, because Legolas dropped 1 game yesterday, or 1 match I should say yesterday. I'm trying to figure out who that was too.
Wero versus Osama, going to be the last match of the quarterfinals I was mentioning before we hit to the semifinals. So Osama we got the chance to see in that first round against Schwarzen, and looked pretty good in that 2-0 victory there. So of course setting up to be a great matchup in itself here in the single elimination tournament. Again, $5,000 we're giving away, as we like to say here for this tournament. Just so happens that you have to finish in a top spot, so you got to win some Clash Royale matches. But this will be first of 3 qualifiers, 3 of the open qualifiers, I should say, and which you yourselves, yes, I'm talking to you, tuning in at home. You can actually play in these with the information below, but you can the next 2 weekends, I believe it is, open qualifiers, and then the 4th qualifier will actually be a collaboration of the top 4 players for the qualifiers. They go on to the main event, and then everyone else points based after that. There will be a last chance qualifier that'll then be played out for determining the final 4 players, and then we have the 8 players going to the main event, and thus that $10,000 prize pool will be happening. So
yesterday it was Legolas who fell in his 3rd round of competition to I believe it's a Chinese player named JR that is actually from the US, so kind of interesting all the way across the board there. But it was Legolas who lost in round number 3, which was I think a little bit less traditional for the people that did make it through to our top 16. It feels like they started to run into trouble in rounds 5 and round 6 because they were the undefeated players going against each other. But Legolas started off a little bit up and down, and then was able to close out his weekend very, very strong as he's still here in the competition. All right, here we go. Wero, top of your screen. Osama at the bottom, and no surprise here from Wero, rocking some of those bridge spam cards. You see Magic Archer and Royal Ghost already known as being one of the best to ever do it in regards to bridge spam.
Well, the Royal Hogs are in pursuit, though. A little bit of a split there. The 1-3 is split. One going on the side of the Valkyrie, the other 3 on the right side, but of course defense is set up very well by Wero, and now he's going offense, but the Ram Rider is going to get that buff in front of him, but the mortar defense just in time.
Yeah, that's actually going to be really, really tough for him, and he's already calling good game. I don't know if he meant to play, I'm assuming he meant to play something other than his mortar there to defend. Lumberjack gets right on through to the tower, and then the Ram Rider connects as well. He's going to have to overspend to stop the tower from going down, but really at this point, it's already game over.
So what was the big misplay there? So it's just simply the placement of the mortar itself?
I think what he meant to do, looking at his cards, maybe he meant to drop the the delivery. I think he meant to drop the delivery on top to catch the Lumberjack and then maybe play the mortar second. I'm not sure, but looking at what he has, that's just not what you want to do, because a mortar with just the one Princess Tower shooting at it on a raged up Ram Rider it's just a very bad use of 4 Elixir.
Yeah. All right, so it's, I mean, the game technically is still going on. As you mentioned, he's already called a good game. I don't know, does that make it official, by the way, if you say good game in an official match?
I mean, we've definitely seen crazier things happen than a turnaround like that, but really what would have to happen here is Wero would have to, like, disconnect. I mean, he would have to have his internet go out at this point. He really only needs to get through 2 spell cycles, 2 fireballs, and 2 logs on that right-hand tower, and he just needs to not lose 1,500 HP over the next 45 seconds, which is a pretty difficult thing to do, but this mortar's going to get a shot. That bandit came down a half-second late, so who knows, man? Maybe we got the curse of the caster coming Wero's way.
Hey, I would love to see it, but yeah, so again, I guess my point was, so the game is not technically over, even though a GG was called. It has to actually finish with the old natural way, but yeah, I mean, he's still playing Osama, or they're still playing. Osama's still putting up some defense and doing what they can to delay this and trying to turn that into the offense, of course, with Valkyrie now leading the way. With the can, another one going to be spawned, actually.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Osama's playing this really, really well. Had he not made that huge misplay early on, we might be seeing something a little bit different here. Lumberjack going to come down on top of that. Fireball in, really, really nice fireball. Ton of fireball value there, and that was kind of Osama's last-ditch effort to try to win this game. Now he's just going to reset, and we might see a little bit more rinsing and repeating of what we've seen in the last minute or so, but still with 394 remaining on that tower, I expect we'll see a Ram Rider come in now that this mortar's off the board.
Yeah. The mortar, there's a Lumberjack and the Ram Rider combination. Valkyrie is going to do what she can, the spin to win. See if she can get the kill on the Ram Rider. No. There's the kill on the tower, and Wero will indeed take it. So, hey, got somewhat interesting there, I suppose. But that bit of a misplay, and that's certainly what it seemed like as you were getting at it, and just for the immediate response from Osama. Whether it's the wrong card or the placement, who knows? But in the end, Osama misplay. That's a loss.
Yeah, when you misplay, especially at this level and that type of misplay, it wasn't like a snowball that missed or something like that. We've seen now 2 times today 4 Elixir misplays, and one of them was a missed fireball, and then right here we have what should have been, I believe, the Royal Delivery, and then maybe the Musketeer to help support with the higher single target DPS. But the biggest thing there was just first stopping the Lumberjack for a very cheap +1 trade, and then really getting anything down to help take that Ram Rider off the board. Honestly, at that point, if he did play the delivery and did drop that mortar, it might have looked a little ugly, but it still would have been adequate.
I kind of wonder that I know a lot of the time, even in a loss, the player will choose to at least swap up their deck a little bit sometimes because of that misplay and how they lost. But even after that, we saw them coming back. Is there a possibility that Osama here may just simply run the same deck, you think, or will they switch up something at least?
It's really not a bad thought there. If you go and you look at his deck, it is a really, really strong deck in the meta right now. He's got the delivery in there. I think, though, when you look at what he used Earthquake and Delivery with Royal Hogs and Mortar. So honestly, it feels more like a deck that he was probably very good with, that is pretty strong in the meta right now, but it's a really good deck to feel your opponent out, right? So now that his opponent has won this game, and it is Wero, and he has used a lot of his bridge spam cards, he knows that he doesn't need to expect bridge spam coming out, right? He doesn't have Bandit, he doesn't have Magic Archer, he doesn't have Lumberjack or Royal Ghost. Then when you talk about the spells, he doesn't have Fireball or Log. So what I think Osama needs to do is, while he did start to play better in that matchup, he's going to see a different matchup in game number 2. I think he really needs to pick apart what his opponent doesn't have available in game number 2. And I think the best way to do that is to abuse the fact that he doesn't have Fireball or Log or Royal Ghost.
Yeah, some very powerful cards there indeed. So, yeah, so very likely going to still see some changes from Osama coming out in game number 2. But again, it really associates. We've had a couple of misplays, but I suppose that's almost normal in these events at the same time, right? Even though here we are in the top 8, that's just part of Clash Royale, even at a high tier competitive level. It could be a fast pace when you're making these quick reactions to somebody else doing something and trying to think on the fly, and that slight misplay could be the difference, unfortunately, but it certainly happens and has already happened sometimes here. But that's the past. Osama's ready to go once again, and I'm sure they're looking forward to now this game too, which we see the early Lava Hound, the Inferno Dragon behind, the Inferno Dragon response already played. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, it looks like both these guys are going to take it to the skies here, and Arrow's going to be exactly the best card to come out when you are running this deck, and knowing what your opponent might want to take advantage of. Arrows becomes a really, really nice use. It's cheaper than Fireball and just as effective when you're taking those Lava Pups off the board.
See a Miner used by Wero there. The immediate response from the guards, and the Miner of his own. No surprise running with that Lava Hound. And the Inferno, as we've seen a couple times today.
We're going to see a very, very similar look here. Going to be a Lava Miner guards, basically mirror match, and we'll just see who comes out on top.
Going to come down to that play. A Lava Hound. So you think it's a Lava Hound mirror match? Here it looks like. Okay.
It's going to be very similar. Yeah, there might be a different big spell here from Osama, but we'll have to find out as this game moves forward. But for the most part, Skeleton Dragons, Guards, Miner, Flying Machine, they're all basically necessities here. And as you can see, it's very clear that Wero does not have a effective big spell. Last card comes out. It is the Lava Hound. Flying Machine is the second to last card. So Arrows and Miner are really his only ways to get to cards that are not, or that are defended by that Lava Hound up front. But obviously Miner can't hit his shovel up in the skies, so it's going to be all about those arrows.
Yeah, trying to get a response there as Wero as far as doing some damage to the blue tower, but gonna have to worry about it their own once again, down to 286. That Miner just slowly beating away with that shovel, gets it down to 190 as the arrows used just in a desperate measure there, even just simply to keep that tower alive. But the Lava Hound set up again by Osama, so you know that's coming. And yeah, is this the case where, yeah, if you're Wero, do you just, I was going to say, put pressure on the other side and say this is a lost cause, and that's exactly what's going to happen here.
Yeah, because what's going to happen here is Osama spends 7 Elixir, and that's going to be completely ignored. So Wero needs to look at that 7 Elixir as a 7 Elixir advantage offensively. But it's really going to come down to what this last card is for Osama, what that spell might be, and how effective it's going to be in cleaning up these pushes. And Arrows is also his spell, and it ends up working out great. Once the lava's off the board, it hits the Skeleton Dragons, hits the pups, and just like that, we're going to go to game number 3.
A good comeback there from Osama. Lava Hound strat working beautifully for them, and going to show you that, again, sometimes misplays happen, but as long as you shake it off and if you're still alive in the series, there's always a chance, and there certainly is here for Osama. Not going to be able to run that Lava Hound strat once again, obviously with the win, but hey, they got to win out of it, and that's exactly what matters. So, yeah, good fight back here in what's the quarterfinals, right? Yeah, this is our last match of the quarterfinals before we head into our semifinals, which, again, going to continue coverage here all throughout the finals. Still plenty more good Clash Royale action to happen.
Yeah, talking about this this mirror matchup that we just saw, I think a big part of that was starting hand, as I saw a couple people in the chat talking about, and Beast saying that a good idea for a new card, a Miner that can throw its shovel in the air. Yeah, maybe it throws its shovel in the air and then does like a fifth of the damage, right? Because it doesn't have its shovel anymore, but it would be nice to at least take off, I don't know, one of those lava pups. But yeah, when you talk about that mirror matchup, starting hand is really a big factor. And seeing that the Lava Hound was the last card played, I think it was the last card played by Wero, probably didn't have it in his opening 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it was the last one there, as we had discussed. So
winner of Wero and Osama are going to go on to face off against Adriel, who has taken down DVJ and Furia along the way. Paradox and Legolas will be facing off against each other in our semifinals. As we're actually working through this day pretty quickly. Hasn't really been any 2-0s that we've covered, but still, it's been really, really nice back and forth play.
I was gonna say, it's kind of double check the time, like thinking to myself, like, when did we start this? About 3 Eastern LA, so a little over an hour ago, and hey, we're already almost to the semifinals. Not too shabby. So I was making it through some good Clash Royale here, but yeah, moving along quick, and I think that's probably safe to say at this point that we talked about the possibility of a third place match coverage as well. And very likely we'll be doing that too. So.
Yeah, third place does still get to walk away with some nice cash prize there. And people saying, get to the game, or why is it taking so long? Well, people got to build their decks.
No matter. I've been doing esports for a long time, like I said, and that'll never change about any game, any community that you're covering. I feel like
that's right.
Always blaming the casters. Get to the game. What do you think we're doing? Come on. Obviously, we'll jump in when the game's actually started, as when the players are ready there. So
you got GG here asking, haven't played for a while. What's the new meta? Honestly, I gotta say, I think the meta right now competitively is in a really, really great place. I think there's only a couple cards out there that still feel a little bit strong. A couple cards out there that maybe feel a little bit undervalued in terms of where they actually stand in the competitive meta. But, you know, right now, you could probably just go the Royal route, whether it's Royal Hogs with Royal Recruits or the Royal Giant. Royal Giant definitely is the most popular win condition in the game as of this moment. That and the Royal Hogs.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme right there with the Royals strat. But I was going to say, yeah, it feels like the diversity from what even just what we've seen here alone, you know, from the top 16 and on is, you know, been pretty good. Obviously, there are some cards that are missing in the end, but overall, it seems pretty healthy. With where the
Yeah, I
season's
mean,
at.
I think really the only two decks that we've seen this weekend that have been kind of run back over and over is the Royal Giant deck with Fisherman, Fireball, and Mother Witch. And then what we just saw, this mirror matchup of what arguably is the strongest Lava Hound deck in the game right now. I mean, I think when you talk about the Fireball bait, but then also the fact that the guards are basically immune to Fireball and how much damage they can put up on the ground, and the fact that the guards can give you really nice positive trades on the ground as well if you're running into something like a Prince or a P.E.K.K.A. You know, there's just so many units that you can kind of distract with the guards and that you can still put in such a good amount of damage with. So Wero going to go to log bait, and Osama does have a bar barrel there in response, and Dark Prince plus Snowball are going to help a lot with these Royal Hogs as a win condition for Osama.
Yeah, the Dark Prince clearing them up pretty easily right there. So a little bit of chip damage, but Wero fighting back now. There's a Zappies placed down to get the aggro on their side. But yeah, the barrels flying out from one another to start things off. So the early idea of what to expect.
And this is where trouble could come in for Wero now that you see that Mother Witch coming out from Osama, and Wero's going to have a hard time getting on top of that Mother Witch, depending on what his spells are. With Snowball there, I don't think we're going to see much else. Maybe Rocket still will be his last card, or his big spell, I should say, since there's still 2 cards to be shown, but it's going to be interesting trying to get on top of all those baity cards with not having a true response to clear them off the board.
Yeah, the Rascals being thrown down there from Wero as the E-Barbs try to tank them up in the middle. So far, life-wise, favoring Osama, but yeah, still a couple of cards hidden, so I have maybe an idea, but no exact information yet as far as what we're going to be seeing.
The biggest thing here for Wero moving forward is he's going to be able at some point to get together a really nice push of the Rascals plus the Dark Prince, or the Rascals plus the Cannon Cart, and then it's going to be about Osama being able to defend that with not having a lot of splash damage. He's going to have to save his Bar Barrel to get on top of the Goblin Barrel. But when it comes to these units kind of piling up at the river, it's going to be very interesting to see how he stops that from happening.
Another cannon. There's that Dark Prince. Oh, almost got there. Just enough damage, though.
Really close.
Finish him off. All right, here we go. Mega Knight's out. Rascals throwing down, though. Got that big boy to tank up the front lines as Goblin Barrel, but the immediately Barrel responded from Osama on the other side. So a bit of distraction play, but this Mega Knight, he's marching forward now.
Yeah, this starts to become a bit of an issue here now that we're looking at the rest of the cards that have come out for Osama. Osama has a great response to the Bar Barrel, or with the Bar Barrel for the Goblin Barrel, and then when you talk about units piling up, which is part of the strategy with this bait deck, the Mega Knight and the Fireball make it really, really difficult for that pressure coming across the bridge to be that effective. So now that you see that the MK is out of play, he's going to pile these units up on the right-hand side to try to get a Fireball out, but just not what he wants to see here, having to defend so much on that left-hand side.
Yeah, it's the spread damage from Osama. Good distraction on his part, getting down to 1197 on that left-hand side. Certainly favoring him, but we're going to head into the overtime phase shortly as the Barrel, again, once again there to immediately respond, the Bar Barrel that is, to the Goblin Barrel, but still sitting on the last card as we've now officially hit that overtime phase from Wero.
And holding on to it this long means it probably just is Rocket, but he's having a really hard time finding where to get that Rocket in.
Okay. You know, another Mega Knight's going to be coming down shortly, I'm sure, for Osama. It's been a little bit. Put some Zappies down first, draw aggro. And there it is, Mega Knight on the left-hand side. Wants to maybe go for the finish here. Yeah, it's nice aggro onto the cannon, at least.
Yeah, we're doing a really good job here of trying to play through this a little bit of a tough matchup when you talk about what he can do successfully. And what he needs to do is he needs to stack as many princesses on the board as he can to maybe try to get fireballs out from his opponent, and then we can get that pile up going of a Dark Prince plus Rascals, or what we're seeing here at the bridge, right? He's just pouring everything on at the bridge because he wants that fireball to come out. And there you go. Fireball is down, but now he doesn't really have a great way to punish. Cannon Cart, though, on the tower. That is massive. That is a massive misplay here by Osama. And now it's game over. There it is. Rocket is in, and just like that. Wow. Wow.
We're holding on to that card, and you called it, Andrew, all the way to the very end. The Rocket coming out to seal the deal. He's like, you want to see my last card? Here it is. This is going to be game over, baby. Wero with the victory in impressive fashion and takes that series 2-1. Yeah, the offensive Rascal, I mean, again, just pouring into the bridge, putting the offensive pressure on after that Mega Knight was killed off initially. It's a good defense on his part with the Cannon Aggro that happened. But it almost felt like I was going to sit here and say, like, this is a bit of a risky play, but it certainly paid off in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were talking about what he needed to do, right? What did Wero need to do to make Osama make a mistake? And what he needed to do was pile everything up at the bridge when MK was out of cycles. So it was interesting. When you said that an MK was going to come down soon, I was thinking, I just don't know. I just don't think it should, right? You should hold that MK in case a pile-up happens. You were right, though. MK comes down from Osama, crosses the river, gets taken off the board very easily by a Cannon Cart plus a Princess plus some Spear Goblins. Then you don't have your best response to clear all that off the board. So then what do you have to do? You have to spend your Fireball. But now you don't have your Fireball and you don't have your tank, and your opponent can keep spending at the bridge. Cannon Cart connects, Rocket in the pocket, game over, man.
And yeah, if you're listening to me, by the way, don't listen to me. I'll say that right now as far as making those plays right there. No, obviously just happened to be a coincidence. Caught up in the moment there, and in the end, good turn once again. So, Wero, victory, and I believe that sets up for our semifinals, which, taking a look here, we got Wero versus Adriel and Paradox versus Legolas. Should be a good one here.
Yeah, and just like that, and then there were 4. Everyone going to walk away with a pretty penny, honestly. If we could take a really quick look at that prize bracket, or the prize pool, and then we will take a very, very short break. But now with only 4 players remaining, the least you can walk away with was $300, then it goes to 5, then $1,200, then you double it up for $2,400. One of these 4 guys in Wero, Adriel, Paradox, or Legolas will be walking away with a lot of points, a lot of cash, and a lot of confidence walking into the rest of our qualifiers. So Breaky and I are going to take a quick 3-minute break. We'll be back here in just a moment. Make sure you guys are following us on all the platforms, Discord and Twitter, so you can know how to join these competitions as we move forward, and of course Instagram and YouTube as well. We'll be back in 3. See you in a second.
We fly around like paper planes, they never know where
And we are back after our nice short recess there. 4 players remain as we're getting into our semifinals to give away $5,000 here at Royale Masters. Our first weekend of competition, 4 more coming your way with our playoffs being on that 5th weekend. Exciting stuff in the sense of money to give away and great plays throughout the day. Breaky, what's some of the stuff that stood out to you so far, man?
It's been pretty, you know, we've seen some certain strategies as far as the Lava Hound specifically, the Lava Hound Inferno Dragon to back it up, and that's been fun to watch. But the win conditions, you mentioned, you called it as far as the Royal goes. Royal Hogs, obviously we've seen plenty of as well, but the Royal Guard, we haven't necessarily, or Royal Giant, excuse me, we haven't seen necessarily as much as perhaps expected yet, only a couple of times if that. So maybe as we enter the top 4 now, something to happen a bit more. But we are in Game 1 of Legolas versus Paradox, our first semifinals, as we get some early action and early information on what we're to see now.
Yeah, so interesting start here. Legolas going to go fast with the minor wall breakers, and then on the other side of it, we have an interesting Hog Rider deck here coming out from Paradox. Hog EQ, but with Royal Delivery there, and I like the play. He's pulling out Royal Delivery plus Log, so he's trying to basically be able to defend in the skies a little bit better, be able to defend pile-ups a little bit better, and not have to use one of those big spells and then poison or fireball. So I'm wondering if he's looking or anticipating wanting to use both of those spells in maybe his 2 wins as he moves on. But starting off with Hog EQ with Delivery. Interesting.
So Valkyrie actually going to be used right in front of the miner. Good placement there. Keep him from doing really much, if any, damage to the tower. But yeah, the spells that are showing by Paradox, and we got a first Spirit here, actually being shown as well. And Knight's going to be taken out with the Valkyrie, kind of an exchange.
Yeah, I like that earlier. Spin to win. I'm going to have to steal that from you.
Spinning to win. There's a lot of the scene that I cover from the MOBA scene. There's some characters over there that they have that spin ability on an RNG, and so spin to win, baby. That's where that connection comes into play. But anyways, we see another spin to win right there.
Yeah,
taking on the miner.
Spell cycled on both sides of the board, poison on one, earthquake on the other, and right now Legolas just happy to stay in this one lane. We'll see when he starts to switch things up, as he's probably going to have to do moving forward when you talk about playing in the same lane as Hog, Valkyrie, EQ. He's going to have to, I think, break things up a bit, but we'll see what he decides.
Yeah, that wall breaker. I'm trying to think, was Legolas the one that ran that wall breaker earlier? I'm not 100% sure, but there was a wall breaker victory that was impressive. So either way, Legolas looking to take advantage of that. Of course, the poison also ticking down against the bomb tower. And the tower itself going to chip it down to about 1686. So we're in that double elixir, but certainly overtime looking like it's on the menu, as usually would be, as the Hunter also showing. So Legolas has shown his whole hand, as has Paradox now. And so it's all about spamming those bridges here.
That's some good memory on your part of it. That was Legolas that did pick up a win earlier with wall breakers against Furkan. So really good stuff there in game number 3 against Furkan, when he put his opponent in a really, really tough spot matchup-wise, and a big part of that was his minor wall breakers. The other part of it was his Tesla and Hunter, and changing not very much up when you look at what he's brought here to this first game of our semifinals against Paradox.
Ain't broke, don't fix it. That's exactly the logic it seems like Legolas is going to, and it's looking pretty good for him right now in Game 1.
Yeah.
We're in that overtime, and the chip damage, I mean, he's going to use poison again eventually here, most likely, especially if that bomb tower comes down, and it's going to keep chipping down. So it feels like Paradox has to make a really over-the-top aggressive play of some sorts.
And this is kind of what that may have looked like right here, Breaky, is he goes for the push with the Hog, with the Muskie, with the Knight up high, which is why you see that defensive poison come out at the river. And Legolas, with such a substantial lead at this point, he doesn't really, I think, even care about getting poison damage. He's going to always use the wall breakers because they're going to demand a response and break up the sequencing of his opponent's offensive pushes. But the biggest thing is he has so much damage, such a substantial lead, and such an easy way to defend. He has so many options.
Yeah, that Hunter is doing a work every single time it spawns, it feels like. Eventually going down there, but he pretty much cleared out both the Valkyrie and the Hog Rider as it was played. So Miner used offensively, and the Knight just slowly making his way downtown. As the poison on the bridge this time. So yeah, as pointed out, it doesn't even necessarily need it for that chip damage right now. Just using a much more of a defensive mechanic to eventually break through, perhaps with the wall breakers.
Windsor here in the chat saying Hog in the back, and the biggest thing with Hog in the back is when you look at the deck that Legolas is running is it's cycle, and there you go, wall breakers connect to the tower. Just tough stuff there. The biggest thing about Hog in the back, Windsor, is that when you're playing against a deck like this that Legolas is running is it cycles about as quickly as yours. So the moment that Legolas sees a Hog cycled in the back, what he's going to do is he's going to cycle a Tesla early on. So he's going to get one Tesla out early on, cycle his Knight, cycle his Hunter, try to get maybe some chip damage with the Miner, and then he's going to be back to that second Tesla by the time that the first Hog Rider makes it across the bridge. So even though you'll have 2 Hogs coming down the lane, you're going to have 2 Teslas as well. And on top of that, you saw that Legolas was not shy about poisoning in the middle of the map, not worried about any Princess Tower damage, just worried about a pileup at the river, which is the only thing he would have had an issue with, and he always made sure he was able to to control that.
Yeah, and that was after he got the initial pressure with the poison on the tower to really put Paradox behind, which then kind of forced him to almost play a little bit maybe too aggressive and, you know, fell into his trap, you could say, in favor of Legolas. So yeah, those wall breakers, I guess you can't ban cards going into a matchup, but if you were able to, maybe banning those wall breakers against Legolas might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, Legolas is a guy that really, really loves to play with Minor Cycle, and, you know, a guy that's come from playing a lot of Mortar Bait, you know, Wallbreaker Cycle is another fun version of being able to create a lot of pressure for very, very cheap. You have to be able to change lanes a lot, but I think the other thing that we saw in that matchup, and I'm going to pull up the cards just so I'm 100% correct here on what we saw. The other thing was there wasn't a lot of great options to catch that Miner in the back because he had to deal with stuff on the front end. So when we look at what it was a Knight, Hunter, and Miner from Legolas on the ground. On the other side of it, it's just Valkyrie and Royal Delivery, right? So every single time that he drops that Miner in the back, the Royal Delivery can come down, but that'll get poisoned off the map and it'll give you no counter push. But you also don't want to drop your Valkyrie in the back there every single time because you have to set the line high with your Hog Valkyrie push because you know Tesla's going to come out every single time. So there really was just not a great way to get around this match. I mean, I think maybe the best thing that Paradox would have had to do, he would have had so many things have to go his way, as he gets a push of a Valkyrie with the Hog behind. He predicts the Tesla with the Bomb Tower and then uses the Earthquake to slow things down to get that Hog Rider hit in. So you need to have like 4 things go your way and assume that your opponent plays a very predictable defense. So that's just, in my book, it seemed like a really tough place to be in. Yeah,
so Paradox trying to fight back now and get what would be the finals, obviously this being the semifinals, and we talked about how much even more prize pool that brings to the table. We're looking at overall that $5,000 prize pool, but you know it starts to go up there, doubling up even throughout even the fourth all the way to first place, where I believe it's $2,400, if I'm not mistaken, as we were mentioning earlier. So a lot of money on the line, and this is just a qualifier, so again, I say it like that because, like I said, there is some good money on the line, but ultimately, as well, after these 3 initial qualifiers, the top 4 players will advance on to a main event, and then there will be a last chance qualifier after the fact, where then 4 more will join them for the 8 players total to compete. So, chat's going off a little bit too much spam in there, but
it's all right. It's not too hard to clean up there, and trust me, we're very happy to clean up the chat, guys. So you can keep bringing it if you'd like. And yeah, like you're saying, man, there's players that'll be 8 players that'll be at our finals or our playoffs here for Royale Masters in about a month from right now, and that's when there'll be $10,000 on the line in just that given weekend. So it's not too late. Yes, you at home, me and Breaky and Rich, all of us can even compete. You probably don't want to watch our games. They definitely won't make it on to the Sunday matches, but anyone can compete in Royale Masters. It is an open tournament, and as you guys can tell, looking at the names that we've seen already this weekend, this is everyone from someone you've never heard of before to the best players in the entire world. Literally, the ranked #1 player in the world was eliminated yesterday. So, as we hop into game number 2 here, the guys that have made it through, these 4 guys have done a lot of work against very, very steep competition.
Yeah, it may seem like a simple, 8-player format here today, but again, it started with over 420 players, I think, 425 if I'm not mistaken. It's like the official registration there, so definitely get on the next one and to follow.
Royale Masters was a little surprised with the response in our CR community, which is, you love to see it. You love to see him represent. So here we go. Paradox looking like he's going to run Royal Giant. Top of your screen going to be Royal Hogs, and that was a nice Fireball plus to keep that cannon cart at bay.
So Royal Giant, it's just simply because of the fisherman you're seeing, that's why you're calling the Royal Giant?
Yeah, the Fisherman plus the Fireball, that usually is always going to be Royal Giant, Royal Ghost in there as well. It's just one of those things. This deck is so popular and so strong in the game right now that those cards basically 95% of the time are only in that deck.
Fair enough. Mother Witch also being played as part of this, as there is the Royal Giant. If you were questioning even a little bit, now we know for sure it is Paradox running the Royal Giant. Trying to force a third game is Paradox, and a Royal Giant, of course, a great card to do that. We also see the Electro Spirit, by the way, being ran by a Legolas. It's our, I want to say, our first Electric Spirit we've had here. At least
yeah, Electro Spirit, Fire Spirit, Heal Spirit. We've seen actually everything, I think, other than Ice Spirit now with this game coming in, and that's just a testament to the great work that the dev team does from Supercell for Clash Royale. You know, you talk about the Electro Spirit and how cool that card was when it was added into the game. You talk about the rework on Heal Spell to becoming the Heal Spirit, and you know, when you talk about the best players in the world, those 1 Elixir cards are their bread and butter because you can get so much value out of them. And that's going to be a nice delivery, but it's going to be a little bit too little, a lot too late, as this tower is going to fall to that Royal Giant, Royal Ghost push.
Yeah, and Paradox is pulling up quite a bit of Elixir as well, and he's going to start doing damage to the King's Tower on top of that. So the Royal Hogs and the Cannon play coming in response, but the Fireball immediately and the Log on top of it. And a Fisherman is just here to say, yeah, you ain't getting much closer. So the GG's even already being called. I think Legolas knows that this is looking like Game 3 is upon him as well.
Yeah, he cycles that Earthquake off in no man's land, not even on the Princess Tower. I think he's just going to sit back for the next 27 seconds. Think about what went wrong there, and, you know, it's really interesting. It kind of just felt like it went wrong so quickly, maybe a little bit too aggressive early on. You know, you could see even if you just look at the cards that were played, the first 3 cards that were played by Legolas cost 11 Elixir. The first 3 cards that were played by Paradox cost 10, or excuse me, cost 10, but there's so much more utility available there. The second those Royal Hogs get fireballed, especially if you're going to let that cannon card get fireballed as well, that is a massive positive trade, especially in single Elixir. So while it looked like one spent 11 and one spent 10, that 4 Elixir Fireball gave so much more utility to one side of the map as opposed to the other.
Yeah, that Fireball doing work, and it seems like of course, if you're going up against Royal Hogs, you really want to make sure that you have a Fireball in hand, as it decimates them and makes them a bit more use, turns them into fresh bacon.
People saying, doesn't Legolas have hard counter? You know, what's really interesting about that is he does have the building, obviously, to help take that Royal Giant's attention away, but what he doesn't have is he doesn't have a big spell, and he doesn't have a lot of great ways to keep that Royal Ghost at bay, also while making sure that the Fisherman doesn't pull away the response. So while I don't think it was like a completely like 100-0 matchup, or I think it was a little bit more even than what you might expect, just not having a way to get to the Mother Witch, not having a way to get to those smaller, softer cards, because it is Earthquake is the big spell plus Electro Spirit, just makes it a little bit more difficult in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any questions, as been going throughout the stream, y'all, feel free to ask in chat, and Andrew will answer any questions that you have on Clash Royale. And I'll just sit here and look pretty and maybe even ask them if I see them too. So
yeah, I definitely still put my foot in my mouth sometimes, especially when we're trying to figure out matchup stuff, because sometimes you'll see a matchup that looks like it's just 100-0 matchup, and you'll see these guys, because they are so good, just play right through it. They just, I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about Clash Royale is, yes, on paper it might look one way, but you can always outplay your opponent, or as we've seen today a couple times, your opponent can make a big mistake, and that's just based on creating the right amount of pressure, making sure that they're not playing comfortably in their cycle, making sure you're making them spend down to 0 regularly, and then you can force a mistake out of your opponent, because when it comes to just matchups that do look like 90-10, the only way you're going to play into that game is by making your opponent play out of it.
Is this a dual format? So it's not 100% dual format from my understanding, but basically how it works is if you win with a deck, then you cannot use any of those same cards in the remaining of the series. So in this case, Legolas and Paradox each with a victory, so their victories, they cannot use those same cards moving forward. So Paradox cannot use another Royal Giant Fisherman strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that, you know, I think because it was game 2, he was a little bit more comfortable to go, all right, I definitely don't want to lose this 2-0. So what I need to do is let me run maybe a deck that I'm very good with and very comfortable with, and that's exactly what we saw there. And it's a deck that is so firmly in the meta, but when you talk about cards that are no longer available, the biggest misses you have, I mean, obviously anytime you play a win condition and it's not available anymore, that doesn't, it's neither here nor there. What it's really more about is the fact that Fireball, Log, Mother Witch, and Royal Ghost are all out of play. So we'll see how Legolas wants to adapt to that. And then on the other side of it, when you look at Legolas picking up his win in game number 1, that was a little bit different, right? That was Poison, that was Log, he used Hunter and Wall Breakers, so he still has a lot of options out there. I think the one thing that that Paradox can hold on to is the fact that there is going to be no Mortar Miner combination from Legolas, but we did see Legolas run Mortar plus Hog earlier in the competition, and I think I've seen him posting about it a little bit online as well. So could be an option that he goes back to Mortar, as it is, I believe, his favorite win condition in the game, but also that might just be a little bit too predictable, especially if I'm thinking of it up here at the desk.
Legolas or Paradox? Everyone in chat, who do you guys have winning here in Game 3? Moving on to the finals, feel free to type it out in chat. Kind of curious on a quick reaction and poll that we got while we're hanging out with you guys. And I'm holding back the match from starting until you guys give me an answer here. So definitely give those answers soon, and then we'll get the match. I'm joking, by the way, if that wasn't obvious. We're of course waiting on the players, as we usually tend to. They're figuring stuff out.
We need 8 more questions before we can hop in the next match.
Yeah,
get those questions in.
We're making this about us, right? This is our time, okay? So you're here for us, all right? No.
Looks like a lot of people saying Paradox in the chat, and I see someone here asking when does registration open for week number 2, so we'll get back to you on that in just a moment. Also here, Beast saying, yesterday I asked you what to replace Skarmy with, and you suggested guards. It's definitely helped, and it worked better than looks like arrows or zap, etc. So obviously arrows can still take the guards out of play, but zap not effective anymore. Again, just like what we're talking about, that Skarmy can get taken off the board so easily. Glad that it worked out for you, brother. Glad that you're back here for our Sunday or our day number 2. And yeah, only a couple people in here saying Legolas, and a little surprised about that. I'm sure there's a couple players out there, including Legolas, that maybe won't agree with you.
I assume Legolas especially wouldn't, but there's of course that's what we'd expect. Expect nothing less. So, shout out for the Philippines. I've been to the Philippines. Hey, shout out to you. It's a beautiful area over there. Chance to travel around a little bit. So, and that's honestly one of the first things, again, covering this tournament, or asked to cover this, and watching yesterday and really coming into it. That's what I really do appreciate about this scene, especially. It's the global aspect, especially having a tournament like this where we see players from literally all over the world being able to compete against one another. That's really cool. That's obviously really cool to see in terms of having a game that's able to do that, I guess, right? Because when it comes to latency, I guess that could play a little bit of a role, but not nearly as impactful as many other games out there. So
yeah, I do think that they had a really brilliant idea there with the way that the drop delay works in Clash Royale to kind of make up for any latency issues that would happen, so that anyone can play anyone from all over the world. You don't have to have centralized servers in any specific region. I think that's actually a really, really great point that you make. And then to kind of piggyback even more on what you were just talking about, the fact that we can be so engaged with so many players from all over the world, it's one of the things that I think has actually succeeded in our online or our individual format. At CRL in 2021, we raised the prize purse up to $1.5 million, but we dropped the team's format out of play. So you no longer got King of the Hill, you no longer got 2v2, and you no longer got the team's aspect. But what you did get is exactly what Breaky's talking about, which is hundreds of players from all over the world that maybe you never heard of or maybe you knew about, but they weren't getting picked up by those big esports organizations. Now they're all here. So here we go. Paradox, Legolas in the best of 3. Winner goes on to battle for $2,400. Loser walks away with what could be $400, or I believe it was $300. I can't remember. It could be a 4th or 3rd place victory. Yeah, money.
So some decent money, especially for Saturday and Sunday afternoon/evening, wherever they may be, playing some Clash Royale. So definitely some good money in the line, but obviously they would want to go a little bit further. Not only for that money, but the title. The Open Qualifier champion. So Inferno Dragon played, as we got our graveyard going back to that. It's been a while since we've seen it seems like, but being played here by Legolas, and nearly all cards shown by Paradox, by the way. Very fast deck from the looks of it, and he's getting some chip damage himself now with the Miner.
And this is where the work that Paradox did in Game 1 with the way that he constructed that deck might come through, right? We were talking about the spells that he used in Game 1. He used Log, he used Earthquake, and of course Royal Delivery was in there. It was kind of the card that I was highlighting as a way to help things piling up at the bridge that Earthquake might not be effective against, or things piling up on the bridge that are in the skies that Earthquake can't even touch. You know, he now has Poison here in game number 4 and Snowball, which is going to do a great job against this graveyard matchup. And the other part of it is he has a really nice way to create space for his miner on the opposing lane, and the wall breaker plus miner push is a really great way to demand elixir out of your opponent as well. So here we go. Graveyard comes in, Poison goes down, wall breakers go out opposite lane to pull a little elixir defensively from your opponent. And it's going to be a lot of rinsing and repeating. But that one skeleton, man, that one skeleton gets on tower.
Doing plenty of damage, putting Legolas ahead by quite a bit. Legolas also showing the final card there of the Fireball, where Hunter is the play from Paradox. So a lot of damage over time, certainly going to be relying on. We've seen already 2 cycles of that graveyard. You know, the third one's going to be coming soon as Double Elixir kicking in. Inferno Dragon gonna start killing off that Valkyrie before she does too much damage as the wall breaker is running in, and one might get, maybe even a couple. Yeah, that was a big damage there.
That is as good as timing can get. Now you can see the idea here for Legolas trying to create a pile up high so that the poison can't be used on the graveyard. But Paradox not gonna bite. He used the poison on the GY and still defends adequately up top. Maybe a snowball? No, Hunter comes down a little bit late. Stops some of the bleeding, but maybe a little bit closer than Paradox would like. That was a really nice wall breaker connection on that last send.
Yeah, but now the advantage for Paradox as the Ice Golem looking to tank against that Tesla. Archers helping to assist to kill it off. Meanwhile, the poison defense on top of that graveyard. We've been seeing that rinse and repeat several times now, and this time all the skeletons go down. So no chip damage in front of Dragon. It's going to die after a couple of hits. Yeah, but another graveyard already.
This graveyard deck just cycles so quickly, and Legolas able to keep up the pressure nonstop. That was definitely an overspend with those wall breakers, trying to keep a little bit maybe at bay at the bridge, but that's going to take it out. Archer connects to the tower, and Legolas escapes by the skin of his teeth. It felt like Paradox was in a good spot, but then you can see Legolas did what some of the things he does best, which is just keeping the pressure up over and over, not allowing any reset, any comfortable miner sends. It was always a miner to the back, but it was in the same lane. And then you talk about that same lane pressure with Graveyard coming down over and over, not able to defend up high. Poison doing work down low, but that's just not enough.
Man, that was just fast getting back to another graveyard there.
Yeah.
And ultimately pulling through for the victory. So well played, moving on to the finals in the end. And that's going to be fun to see now who Legolas will play in the finals. Will that be Wero or Adriel in our every other semifinal matchup? Of course, we'll jump into that as soon as the players are ready there. But yeah, great cycling from Legolas. And it's got to be feeling pretty good about that one in terms of that much more of the prize pool. And of course, that many more points towards the ultimate finals of the event. But just naturally also, you know, these are competitors after all. Feels good to win.
Yeah. I mean, he gets to walk away with a minimum of $1,200, and here we go, hopping into this set between Wero and Adriel. And yeah, you said it. They said it in the chat. That cycle was just brutal. Usually you don't see as many graveyards coming out that early on in a game and then staying that aggressive with them throughout. But that's what the name of that deck was. You could see how cheap it was, you know, when you talk about all the cards available and how effective it was. So great recognition there of the macro going for the out cycle to outplay. And I also saw someone here in chat asking, and now we got the response. So just make sure you guys are following along with Royale Masters on Discord and on Twitter. The registration will open up later today. So just make sure you're looking out for it, and then you can come compete here.
There you go. Well, we see this is not a replay of the previous match. This is a completely different series. Adriel versus Wero. Adriel running the graveyard into Wero using the poison defense immediately after. But look at the right tower. It's just dead. The Mega Minion, one more attack, and that's... Oh, he doesn't get it off. It's down to 8 life, though. Adriel doing plenty of distraction on the left-hand side and open up vulnerability on the right. Even I missed it initially.
Yeah, Adriel just making his opponent overspend on defense on the opposite lane, then just goes in for a very simple Dark Prince plus Mega Minion push. And I think the biggest thing about that is when you look at the cards available on Wero's side of the board, with the Goblin Hut out of cycle in the left-hand lane and the Miner played early on, it's really only the Royal Ghost that can catch it, right? Royal Ghost and Miner are the only 2 ground units you're seeing there, and Adriel just takes advantage of that and just puts him to work for it. 8 HP remains.
Goblin Hut. Not much more life to work with here, but out comes the Royal Ghost. Down to 8 life, though. It's pretty much a lost cause on the right-hand side. It's just a matter of can Wiro take out a tower as well, get something low enough in the next 50 seconds to at least force that overtime. And, well, Pekka, he's a unit that certainly can.
Yeah, this is going to be basically his last-ditch effort here, just seeing what happens. He might be able to set up one more offensive push, but it definitely won't be one with a Pekka after this goes down, so he's going to have to make some magic happen here with 30 seconds remaining.
He's got Poison. Well, we maybe see that come out offensively here. Hog in front. Pekka, they kill the cage, and now going to duke it out with an Ogre, and Pekka goes down. So, yeah, 20 seconds remaining. Again, 8 life on that right tower, but just a matter of finishing it off. Using a fireball to play defense there, and the GG's even call knows that another fireball perhaps coming any second now.
Yeah, snowball comes down.
Actually takes care of it, yeah.
And, you know, that was it. That was his one opportunity he had. He cycles the Pekka in the back. He recognizes he's at a massive disadvantage. He does a good job. He sends a miner to the back end, which makes defending up high a little bit more difficult. But Adriel was expecting all of the moves. And that's one of the things that I think I've recognized watching this guy play. And, you know, not super familiar with Adriel, as we've seen him have some success this weekend. I believe we've seen him pop up a little bit here and there in other competitions. But his recognition of the macro of the game, his understanding, and also putting his opponents on decks have been really, really impressive throughout. You know, he knew exactly how to defend there at the end, take minimal damage, but it was really more about sending a Dark Prince plus Mega Minion at the bridge in single elixir. You know, it's not really a play that's advised unless you know exactly what your opponent has, and you saw exactly what Wero did not have, and that was a response to a massive onslaught.
Yeah, that was so well played, and it's somebody pointing out in chat, imagine losing to a snowball. Yeah, it's got to feel bad for Wero, but obviously that was just really good play by Adriel. Certainly all the credit there deserved by them, and the earlier play that set up for that eventual finish, we just knew inevitably was coming, it feels like. So Adriel not able to run those same cards once again moving forward, but very happy to have that victory under their belt in this other semifinal matchup. Again, the winner of this moving on to play Legolas in the grand finals. Loser will still play in the third place matchup. So, in that sense, kind of double elimination, but...
Trying to look and see here which group Adriel was in. There he was. He's in Group C. He was in Group C yesterday, and he was undefeated on the day. He went 6-0. He took out Tico there in his final round, where both those guys were perfect, which is someone who we also saw a lot of and played very, very well this weekend. He also took out Furkan along the way. So I think that was one of the things we were recognizing yesterday when we looked at Group C, was just how strong of a group it was just in the qualifiers. To even get in the top 4 of that group felt like as hard as it is to win some competitions. And now I think we're really seeing how Adriel did that yesterday, taking out those big names along the way.
Adriel showing off the Earthquake, slowing down that Magic Archer, is marching down towards the bridge. Did get confirmation, by the way, especially with how fast moving a little bit quicker. We are going to be covering the third place match, as well as the finals after this. So 2 more series to come of some great Clash Royale, and certainly been very entertaining, and looking forward to seeing how this one plays out now as Adriel once again up 1-0. Here as the arrows from Wero. Stop a little bit there, and the Valkyrie going to get a couple spins in, but now here comes that Minion Horde. Or excuse me, the...
Royal Delivery, which is actually a really great response to the Minion Horde. You talk about getting a +2 trade if that did come in, and people in the chat saying Adriel's going to win the whole thing. Honestly, he's been looking really, really clean in this entire competition, and I wouldn't be shocked if he did. And Adriel's going to be running Hog EQ cycle, is pretty obvious there when we see the Firecracker plus the Valkyrie, and the fact that we did see EQ come down a bit earlier. And now we're going to see how he wants to deal with this MK. Probably a delivery to get on top of the Magic Archer. There it is. Takes the Magic Archer off the board, and then maybe uses Skeletons here to try to pull to the center, and then maybe drop something to activate King. No, he can't overspend on that. He does have to take that Mega Knight leap. Wow. And the Bandit Dash on the other side. That's tough.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, a lot of resources he played. You were just doing the call exactly, but even with that, it still didn't matter. And then meanwhile, the left tower also taking a good chunk of damage. Talked about the Bandit coming in there at the end. So we're certainly on point here in Game 2, trying to stay alive and force that third game as we now hit the 60-second mark. But here comes the Hawk Rider, baby. The Firecracker to protect and get in there, but going to be stopped pretty quickly on his way to the tower. The Log just going to throw it off a little bit more as well, but it's certainly favoring Wero. And still has one more card to show, and it's that Ram Rider. Going to put it in the far back. The Earthquake slowing things down, but eventually going to make her way in.
Yeah, this is a very interesting matchup for Adriel, and you can see here Wero knows exactly what to do. He's starting to cycle all of his strongest cards in the back towards the weaker tower, and luckily for him, it's actually the weaker tower of his opponent, but Adriel's going to have to switch lanes here. That's why he's starting to cycle stuff in the back, because he can't continue to deal with this push in the same lane. With all these cards piling, honestly, this is probably just going to be tower down right now. This is perfectly put together. There's not enough in the tank. Royal Delivery is not going to do it, and we are going to go to game number 3. Wero doing what Wero does best. This is not a bridge spam deck, but it has Magic Archer, it has Bandit, it has MK, and it has Ram Rider. So it has very many cards in it that he is so familiar with and he is so deadly with, and you saw just exactly what he did. He cycled things in the back correctly. He did so his opponent had to change lanes late in the game, and you never want to have to change that late in the game when you're running Hog EQ, especially against that deck. So really good stuff from him. The fact that the Goblin Cage in there as well was kind of just adding insult to injury, but just a really, really nice game number 2 from Wero.
Maybe this is a little bit of recency bias by me, but I was going to bring it up earlier too, and after what we saw right there, it's certainly worth bringing up. Mega Knight feels strong, man. And we have not seen a lot of Mega Knight, I feel like, throughout this event so far. Only like a couple stand out to me that we've really seen leading to victory, so
yeah,
just kind of curious on that.
Yeah, Mega Knight super strong in the game right now. I think the biggest reason why the MK came back, like rushing back into the meta, was because of how much Royal Hogs have been used after they got their buff. So MK is obviously a really great positive trade for Royal Hogs, and it gives you a good counter push. But the other part of it is, I think when you start to see more of a card in the game, it starts to remind other people how much they like that card or how much they hate playing against it. So MK really, really strong right now. It hasn't really changed balance-wise in a while, but it just is found a really, really great spot in our meta as of late. And you saw right there, if it's played correctly, that MK is so devastating.
Yeah. MK's easy to defend, says somebody in chat. I mean, I'm sorry. From what I just saw right there, there was great defense, and it still didn't matter.
It's really about, you can say that about anything in the game, right? P.E.K.K.A's easy to defend. Hog Rider's easy to defend. MK's easy to defend. Well, yeah, totally. So, if you're talking about this matchup specifically, what should have happened from Adriel as opposed to what did happen? And, I guess what he could have done is he could have brought opposite lane pressure when he saw the MK cycled in the back. But at that point, his opponent could just drop a Goblin Cage, take a little bit of damage from the Hog, and then he'd still have dual lane pressure and a completely healthy Mega Knight coming down the lane. So a lot of times, we answered this question yesterday, what do you do against MK? Well, you got to create opposite lane pressure, and then you also want to try to activate King Tower, but that was just not in the cards for Adriel there. So here we go, game number 2. Adriel going to some wall breakers.
Yeah, we got some wall breakers. It feels like we've had some good success with this unit as well. We mentioned Legolas in the previous matchup, certainly helping to get in that ultimate victory there in the 2-1 series in the finals. And Adriel trying to rely on it for a 2-1 victory here, but this is it. Winner goes to the finals. Loser, they'll play in a third place match still for a little bit more money, which we will cover once again. But more information coming out. You see a mortar on the other side of Wero, as there's a miner now, and here comes the Hog Army.
Yeah, Mortar Royal Hogs on one side of it, and then on the other side we're going to have Miner Wall Breakers plus Magic Archer and probably Tornado. He feels like Tornado has to be in there, and we talked about this yesterday. You can try to get a good amount of Miner chip damage in and some Wall Breakers to connect, but the biggest thing, or some of the strongest parts of this deck, win condition-wise, is just getting some beautiful lineups with the Magic Archer, which I have to anticipate we'll be seeing some good stuff from Adriel. Yeah, Chaos Kid basically hit the nail on the head there. Any card is easy to defend. Support cards and good gameplay make them difficult. Exactly. I'm pretty sure Adriel could beat every single one of us, and you saw him just get completely taken to town by that MK push on the last game.
Yeah. So great immediate Knight right there. Defense against the Miner. Prevents much from happening as the Fireball. Quick clear out. As the Knight's going to start marching down, but a Valkyrie. Played in response. So you mentioned Tornado, possibly. I don't think we've seen Tornado actually yet today, but you think that's the final card?
Yeah, I do not think we have seen it yet, and it should be the final card. I'd be surprised if it was anything else, just because it just pairs up so well with Magic Archer. Okay. And this is probably what we're going to see out of Wero for the rest of the game, is he's going to try to just get damage from his Royal Hogs. He's going to just use that Mortar to keep those Wall Breakers out of play, because at the end of the day, he does have better spell power value and a better way to get directly on tower.
That Bomb Tower doing a good job against the Royal Hogs, bringing it over. An easy clear out in the end for Adriel. 32 seconds remaining before that overtime phase. We're in that double elixir course, Mortar. Nice bait there, and it's going to get a nice army in response, but the log will clear out any chance of being too useful. The Magic Archer hitting from afar. Barrel in the face, though, and there. Roy Hog's on the left side, excuse me, but again, that bomb tower immediately played in response, and both sides playing pretty crisp right now. No surprise here in Game 3.
Yeah, and I like what Adriel's doing. He's not overspending on his defenses. He's staying aggressive on offense. He needs to make sure that this mortar doesn't have as much of a presence as it's had, and that's a good way to do it. Spear Goblin's behind the wall breakers, but he has been taking those mortar shots. He doesn't want this game to get closer than it already is. You see that knight working its way down the right-hand side. The cannon cart played on the left-hand side of that walkway because he's still looking for that Magic Archer lineup to pierce on through. So Wero doing all things right, and now has a cannon cart on tower with Knight, nothing there. That is really, really bad when you talk about moving forward in this game. Wow, and then that last shot comes in, that's game over. Wero will be going on to our finals, and that was just a bit of a misstep there from Adriel, and this goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the day. Wero is a name you guys have heard for years. Adriel is a name you might be getting a little bit more familiar with. And sometimes when you're watching games like this, it does look like you can almost see the nerves on screen by some of the aggressive or over-aggressive plays, or by just missing some of the fundamentals that you would expect to have. You know, there was a lot more that could have been done in the opposite lane there. There was a lot of mortars connecting on tower that shouldn't have happened. And, you know, when you talk about Magic Archer lineups, he wasn't forcing them out. Yesterday, we saw miners go to the Princess Tower to line up the Magic Archer, but he wasn't forcing them out with the NATO. He wasn't lining them up with the miner. He was just playing a little bit too passive against someone that good.
Yeah, not even getting to see the final card. I mean, that's always unfortunate, too, especially into the overtime phase, not having a chance, at least a viable chance, according to Adriel, right there, to play what you believe was that Tornado, unable to make play with it and losing it in the end. So that's gotta feels bad, man, but at the same time, again, still alive in the third place spot to be, or third place match even to play against Paradox, which there is still that bigger portion of the prize pool on the line, and more points. We can't forget about that. So although there's money, which is obviously nice, points are also important, lead towards the main event finals, which then even a bigger prize pool is on the line. But Wero and Legolas, that's our finals matchup. Gotta kind of wonder how many people would have predicted that one. From what I've been hearing, it sounds like, you know, maybe a fair amount. Definitely two quality players going at it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely two great players out there. But when you talk about the other people that were here to start our weekend, Wallace, Schwatzen, Firkin, you know, Tico, there's so many good players out there that just weren't able to make it on through. And these guys were. Wero, no surprise there. Legolas, honestly, not really much of a surprise either. He's been playing so much out there. He's a guy that I know has a good amount of respect from other great players in the space. And we're seeing exactly why. He's been able to vary things up win condition wise. He's been able to use the same win condition, the same deck over and over and have great success with it. So we're going to see, I bet you we'll probably see a little bit more variability as we get into the finals, but just great stuff from them. And, you know, when looking here online at Battlefy and looking at that last card, you know, it was the Tornado, and that just, again, you know, could have been partially matchup, but I think there was ways to maybe just create a little bit more outplay ability with that deck that Adriel did not really use to his advantage.
Yeah. I honestly did not even know you could do that until you said that, by the way. Battlefy, where the brackets are at. You click on the match, and all of a sudden you see the previous cards that were used. So,
yeah, Battlefy, pretty good, you know, tournament hosting platform. We've been using it for our qualifiers for CRL, and obviously we're using it here at Royale Masters. And, you know, you guys are going to want to get familiar with it if you want to compete. Royale Masters on Discord and on Twitter. Anyone can compete. Registration will open later on today for week 2. And as Breaky was just saying, there are 3 weeks of these open qualifiers. Then we get to the LCQ, where 4 more players will join the rest for our final weekend in November for our playoffs, where over $10,000 going to be given away along the way. $25,000 total in this entire tournament. With, you know, one of these guys in Wero or Legolas will walk away with $2,400. The other way walks away with $1,200. So that's at least a nice guarantee on your Sunday.
A lot of coins you can buy in game with that money right there. So somebody asking me what deck I personally run. I'm a fan of the Lava Hound, honestly. The Lava Hound Inferno Dragon strat. That's it. For whatever reason, that's my kind of strat. Now what am I? I have like 4,000 trophies, so I feel like it's not too bad, but I know not the greatest either, so take what you will from that. But it looks like we are now ready for this is going to be our third place match, of course, that we're jumping into first. So Paradox versus Adriel. Gonna get into it again, still playing for a bigger portion of prize pool here and some extra points as a bandit and a lumberjack will duke it out. Lumberjack's gonna win that battle.
Yeah, when you see Lumber Inferno, we might be thinking freeze here, balloon freeze. Could be also maybe Ram Rider.
Well, whatever it may be, there's the Ram Rider.
And yep, Bowler coming out here from Paradox, so it will be balloon freeze. And yeah, Bowler, a card that's not super popular anymore. It used to be really popular in the Splash Yard Graveyard deck. But now it's found a pretty happy place in this Lumberloon Freeze deck. So we'll see how that fares running into Mama P.E.K.K.A here on the ground. And the good thing for Paradox is that Bowler is going to demand a pretty heavy response on the ground. It won't always be the P.E.K.K.A, though, as the Bandit and the Dark Prince will do a good job there. The biggest thing for Paradox here is that so far, Adriel not looking like a lot of great air options. Ewiz coming down will help for sure with that balloon. But he's going to always want to get the Mother Witch out first and the Ewiz down second when he talks about defending, waiting for that freeze.
Yeah, nice fireball there at the bridge. Even keeps the Electro Wizard alive just a little bit longer before falling to the tower. But out comes the balloon. Immediately Witch put down. The Ram Rider also going to assist, so the balloon held in place. And eventually, bomb goes down to do a little bit of damage, but not much. But yeah, a couple of new cards that we haven't seen again. It really just, I think it shows you how very diverse the game, frankly, is right now. It's a nice tornado pull in there. Activate the King's Tower. But we're seeing cards here, and this is the third place match. We've been through so many matches so far. We're seeing the Bowler for the first time, Electro Dragon, I believe, Tornado technically for the first time. So
yeah,
it's cool.
And that's a nice King Tower activation there. He does take the Bandit Dash on the left-hand side, but the King Tower activation will be really effective moving forward throughout the rest of this game when you talk about getting a little bit of extra help with dealing with that Ram Rider, as she does always seem to somehow connect to tower. But Paradox, what he needs to do is just continue to just defend on the right-hand side, and there you go. Gets the balloon plus lumber on the other side of the map. The last part of it that I didn't even mention a moment ago when he's talking about air defense is exactly what you're seeing. That Ram Rider is so good at defending against the air, and now you're seeing the overspend on offense by Paradox with that NATO. That NATO was way too aggressive, and now he takes damage on both sides of the board. So Paradox getting maybe a little ahead of himself here in game number 1 of our third place match.
Yeah, I feel like Ram Rider, I might be completely off saying this, but not usually considered that defensive unit, more of the offense, getting pressure on the opponent's tower, but we're seeing a very defensive use of it here against the balloon attack attempts from Paradox, certainly. So the advantage for Adriel looking pretty good as we get the overtime phase. That Snowball going to slow down the Inferno Dragon and kill it before it really does much to the tower on the right-hand side, but maxed out on elixirs, trying to figure out. It seems like Paradox almost at a loss as far as how do they continue playing this?
Yeah, he's definitely found himself in a really tough spot. Now he's going to try to probably start to work in the opposite lane as he piles units up here if that P.E.K.K.A does come down. But you can see Adriel really happy to cycle those 2 cards early on. Like we said, Mother Witch needs to come out first, then Ewiz, then it'll be Ram Rider, because in terms of effectiveness, they are the 1, 2, 3 in that order. Ram Rider doing a really great job, and it can turn into a strong counter push. Ewiz, obviously, with that slow stun, going to help with the freeze. And then the Mother Witch just for a little bit of support, but yeah, there it is. He switches lane here with the Bowler, and just having trouble creating any sort of offensive presence is Paradox.
Yeah, again, another use of the balloon. Now we're going to see the Ram Rider immediately coming out. Well played by Adriel, just so on top of it. Nice freeze, though, trying to really by the time get the balloon in there, but again, the Ram Rider still able to hold it in place, so no balloon attacks going off as that Bowler eventually is going to kill it off, it looks like. But we're cycling back in 2 Bowlers currently there. Another balloon through with the Lumberjack, so this is some good cycle happening, and a freeze on top of that for the eventual Ram Rider. This might get in there. Oh, the Snowball. Good defense from Adriel still.
Yeah, I mean, that was basically picture perfect. You talk about setting the line there so no tank gets across the river with the P.E.K.K.A. The E was dropped basically right on top of the P.E.K.K.A. because that way it's out of freeze range. It's still going to get directly on top of the balloon. And then you have the Snowball in there as well. So you know, Adriel may be looking for balloon, really. I mean, when you talk about matchup, it doesn't get really much worse than this for Paradox in terms of the amount of responses. Almost every single card is a good response to help that balloon. And this is one of the things that we were noticing about Adriel throughout the weekend is there's something about his analyst. I don't know if he's doing it on his own, if it's his own analysis, or if he has an analyst working for him where he's coming up with these really, really brilliant matchups.
Yeah, very good defense. And Adriel, once again, we'll see them take game number 1. We saw that in the semifinals, though. And then eventually was defeated. Thus why here in the third place match. So we'll Where of course won to defeat Adriel in the previous round, but feeling good still. That was again a very unique set of cards, at least from what we've seen today, being ran by Paradox. But what was that maybe the issue, you think? Seeing this Bowler Electro Dragon, I mean, was it really the matchup difference?
Yeah, I mean, what I think is really interesting is, you were just mentioning a moment ago that we hadn't seen this deck at all, and this is a really popular deck in the meta right now. It really is the only deck you see Bowler in. It is one of the strongest Balloon decks out there. It's basically right now Balloon Cycle or Balloon Freeze, whereas Lava Hound plus Loon isn't as popular these days. But it just got worse and worse and worse for Paradox as he looked at Adriel play cards. You look and you're like, oh, Dark Prince, oh, Bandit, Mother Witch, okay, this is actually pretty good. Then you see the E-Wiz, then you see the Snowball, then you see the Ram Rider, then you see the Fireball. There's just no way that someone at this level won't defend that because there's just too many options, right? When we did see the best offensive push put together by Paradox, it was stopped right in its tracks by a P.E.K.K.A. and a high E-Wiz. That way it's not freezable. And then what was frozen was the Princess Tower, but you can still slow that down. Even if you have no Elixir for a Ram Rider, you still have enough for a Snowball in double Elixir. You'll always have 2 Elixir. So matchup-wise, it was just pretty brilliant for Adriel.
Well, either way, shake it off. Game 1 in the books. Adriel, of course, can't run any of those cards. Once again, going back to the format of the tournament, if you win with a set of cards, you cannot use them in the rest of that series moving forward. So Paradox, though, fighting back. And we see some early information. Some archers. Got the cannon pushing in with the hunter already spawned. There's some graveyard action. Does he have the poison response? Yes, Adriel does. The poison immediately coming out. And that's what we're going to see. It is interesting to me how if one player has that graveyard, it seems like the others already with that poison.
It's crazy, right? You talk about this format, you talk about cards you can repeat, win conditions that you can go to, what's popular in the meta, and, this is, again, where it comes down to analysis, and the fact that Adriel is running poison in this weird Lava Hound deck when he goes up against Graveyard, is it coincidence? Who knows? I bet you Adriel will tell us that it was not an accident. And looking here in the chat about matchups, someone was asking, was that a 50-50? And Viking doing the Lord's work here saying, no, it was an 80-20 matchup for P.E.K.K.A. And that's basically exactly what we were just talking about. Especially as you saw that game go on, you were able to see how difficult it was for anything to happen in a positive sense for Paradox.
Yeah. Well, it looks like both players actually running that poison. That's Paradox showing his as well. So going to use it very defensively there. And all cards are shown now by Adriel, the one more to come on the side of Paradox. That Valkyrie's going to make her way forward. But yeah, so to me, it comes to a place of you still got to use the graveyard, though, right? Even though you know the poison is going to come out, you almost have to force out that poison.
Exactly. What you want to do is you always want to force out the poison so that because what's going to happen is exactly what you're talking about. Every time graveyard come down, poison's going to come down. So what do you need to do then to change that up? You have to get such a massive push at the bridge that your opponent is going to poison the bridge so that all those units can't cross. That's what we're seeing right here, right? Valkyrie plus Cannon Cart plus Hunter, and now the Miners coming in because you're trying to win that bridge battle. The second that something comes across the river for you, then you can get the graveyard down. So there you go. You see this pile up here, and it's not quite enough to pull out a poison from your opponent, but it's getting close, and he just needs to work on that more and more as we get deeper into double and triple elixir. Create a massive pile up at the river so that your opponent has to use their poison there, and then the graveyard comes in.
So the idea is there, just simply not enough at that point, but we are going to be hitting that overtime phase now once again. There's another Lava Hound already making the way downtown, but we got Hunter already playing in response, and the Valkyrie tank things up as well. An Inferno Dragon flying machine.
Really
Left
nice.
side, some buildings.
Yeah, nice catch there on the Cannon Cart plus Graveyard push coming in. High Goblin Cage to keep the Cannon Cart out of Princess Tower range. Then the poison comes in. Right-hand side, though, still a lot to deal with here defensively. Nice Snowball to reset that Inferno, and now that push dies on the Vine.
There you go. A couple of auto attacks to do it in. Baby Dragon way in the back. Being played by Adriel, meanwhile. But
and this is an interesting bait here. So what happened there is last time we saw Paradox go Cannon Cart plus Graveyard immediately at the river, and it was caught. So this time he played the Valkyrie up high and did not play the Graveyard because he was trying to bait out an overspend from his opponent. But this is the highest level out there. Adriel does not bite. He just drops a Valkyrie in response and waits. That's the other thing that's so beautiful about Clash Royale is if you're fast enough, you can always wait to see what your opponent's going to do.
That's so boring, though. But hey, may win you games, and that's what they're looking to do right here. Adriel's trying to finish it off. Of course, already up 1-0 in the series. Another Graveyard comes up with the immediate poison, just very on top of Freddy with the poison. So that goes back to what you were mentioning earlier, where Paradox, what ideally they need to do is get that bait of the poison at the bridge, but just not able to do enough to get it out from Adriel. So another Graveyard. The poison's not immediate this time, but it eventually happens and will stall things. So if this one, 30 more seconds remaining, currently favoring Adriel, of course, as far as the life goes, but maybe a little bit closer than you would have thought.
And now you see a little bit more aggressive play here from Adriel. He gets the miner in this time. It's been a while since the miners come down offensively. He still stops the cannon cart at the bridge, and he's just going to try to maintain this lead that he has. He knows, though, that 400 damage in Graveyard can happen instantaneously, which is why you're seeing him play this so cautiously on an offensive presence, or an offensive sense. So, yeah. Wow, right there you saw at the very end. Skeletons come in with that snowball. A couple of them get on tower, and we're only separated by about 150-something HP. So maybe a little closer than we would have liked, but Adriel gonna get third place in our tournament. Paradox is eliminated. That will be the end of the run for Adriel as well, but he's gonna walk away with a little bit more cash than his counterpart there, and a lot to brag about. You talk about some of the people that he beat along the way, some of the people that were in his group, in Group C, some of the best in the world. Furkan was in there, Tico was in there, Legolas was also in there maybe, but you talk about the people that he was able to defeat along the way in this weekend. Really impressive stuff. Still third place, nothing to be sad about. Getting a good amount of points.
400 plus players participating in this event, finishing third. Yeah, I think you can be pretty happy, especially when you came into it maybe not as known as some of these other players. And again, it was up 1-0 against Wero in the semifinals before dropping that one to then get to this point. So yeah, still a very successful Open Qualifier, certainly for Adriel, and we'll be obviously having a couple more to even go, get more points, more money even perhaps, and well on their way to seeing them in the finals event of what's going to be the top 8 players from after all of this going on. So, but we get that. Speaking of finals, we got our actual finals for here the Open Qualifiers that will be coming up next, and should be fun as we're going to see right here on the brackets. Wero versus Legolas, two very quality players, and again, maybe not the most surprising in the end, but still it's quite the gauntlet having to get through to get to this point, and thus they're here.
Completely. I mean, you talk about the people that were taken out along the way, and the fact that Wero was the one that dethroned Adriel, who we just saw take third place. So Wero and Legolas have been forces to be reckoned with all weekend long. And just like you said, man, here we are at our finals.
Ooh. Tornado to activate that King's Terror on the Hog Rider, but early information, of course, coming out on either side. The Hog Rider Earthquake combination says, all right, might as well do damage to both. But that's a lot of early damage from Legolas. Still a lot of game to play, though.
And this is another one of those Hog EQ versions that were popular out in the meta. And this is going to be a pretty tough defense here because the Tesla will come down, but it's going to get taken off the board pretty quickly. Raged, yeah, Archers there, great. This is actually really, really nice. When you have the delivery coming into play as well, that's really going to help in these situations going up against these decks in the skies. This is one of the harder matchups in this Hog Rider EQ version, but that Royal Delivery really kind of evens the playing field.
Again, the aggro of the Tornado, so certainly has a defensive tool to take care of the Hog Rider. Not only early game, but throughout it seems like. So still cards hidden, though, for the side of Wero. Are we thinking, okay, Bowler actually going to be used here? I mentioned the Tornado and the synergy that comes of it. So this is the same deck that we saw in the last series, I'm guessing, yeah. Yeah,
this is going to be another Bowler Loon Freeze deck going up against Hog Rider, and this is actually going to be a pretty tough matchup for Legolas, because as this game moves forward, it is going to be difficult to make those Royal Deliveries as impactful, especially because that Balloon deck can cycle around relatively quickly, especially once we're in double. And then when you talk about responses, that Tornado and the Bowler make it really, really difficult for that Hog Rider to be as effective.
Lumberjack charging in, but not going to get much out of this as Hog Rider, but it's almost like we've seen this before. Immediate Tornado pull in, and the Electro Dragon now coming down as well, so...
Well, Wero has this great luxury, and he did it right there, is every single time he's just going to play with his cycle. So if the Hog Rider comes out and he uses the Tornado to defend, he's going to cycle the Bowler in the exact same lane. That way the Hog Rider can't come back around. He can't get out-cycled by the Hog Rider. It has to go opposite lane. So what Legolas is forced to do every single time is to send in the hog and then over defend, and then he's going to send in the hog again, but there's always going to be a response. So there you go. You saw Wero use the tornado this time offensively, but he's going to be back around to a bowler defensively if he needs to. So this is just a bit of a tough spot for Legolas to be in when you talk about actually being able to break on through, and that is a really nice freeze. That's definitely going to be a connection.
Yeah, huge damage. I was just about to sit here and say, like, well, I mean, this is going to favor Legolas, right? Just constantly chipping damage about the Kings down the left tower, but no, all they needed was a one execution, the offensive tornado coming out, and sure enough, gets the balloon in there to take the advantage for Wero. So, still, again, plenty of game left, but right now, Wero on the upper hand, and Legolas having to figure out how do you act against this now? Do you keep trying to go back to the same true trusted strategy of the Hog Rider, knowing that's going to get pulled in, or he's going to change it up a little bit, going the Hog Rider on the right side, but there's the pull-in.
Yeah, and that's, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with Wero trying to figure things out, and the only thing he could do is exactly what we saw. He goes opposite lane with the Hog Rider, but at this point, there's such a substantial difference in damage between the two towers that Wero can always under-defend, and he can always continue to cycle what he needs in the left-hand lane. So now he's building up another really big push here. You can see the balloon is dropped back farther behind, so maybe not as much royal delivery value comes in. And again, you talk about under-defending on the right-hand side because he doesn't have to worry about that tower yet.
Man, that offensive pressure. Out comes a royal delivery of that balloon, though. Going to at least connect to the Tesla. Finish that up, but this time we'll be able to save damage on the actual tower. But another balloon. We are cycling really fast now. That's 40 seconds remaining here in overtime. The Tesla goes down. That great offensive freeze, and that balloon, if it connects, that's GG.
Legolas played that very, very well. There was just really no way of playing out of it. I mean, one of the things that I thought he did best was at the very end, he was anticipating that NATO to come in to line up the archers with the bowler, but he dropped down skeletons to distract the bowler so that it didn't hit the Princess Tower. I mean, that's thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead when you're in a really bad spot matchup-wise, and even then, it still wasn't even close to enough. Wero doing what we've seen Wero do a lot, and this is something that, you might have heard me mention earlier in the day, Breaky, is just when you talk about understanding the macro of the game. Once Wero knew what he was going up against, he always had a tornado or a bowler either in cycle or ensuing in the lane that Legolas was working towards. And then once Legolas had to switch lanes, because you can't just keep doing that when you're playing Hog Rider, you have to change lanes up because you're never going to win the pile-up battle. Every single time Wero under-defended, took damage so that he could stay on offense, and that is just brilliant Clash Royale.
Yeah, I'll say this about Wero. It's continued to be a grind throughout these brackets, at least. Every single match for Wero, including the round of 16, mind you, against Wallace, it went to a third game. So, up 1-0 in this series, but if trend continues, maybe that third game is upon us. But it's going to be hard work for Legolas to come back, of course. Wero playing very well, as you saw, especially in that first game, and using that bowler strategy to perfection. So obviously many different directions can go, but Legolas, something we mentioned, I think it was the previous series too, was the wall breakers from Legolas. A couple of times now the wall breaker strategy has come through very well. So part of me wants to believe that maybe we're going to see that come out here in the desperate game 2.
Yeah, in game number 2, I think one of the things that you have to take into consideration here is that, Wero was probably watching what Legolas was succeeding with earlier.
True.
And the other thing is that Legolas knows that Wero is one of the best bridge spam players in the world to ever play the game. So if I'm Wero and I have a game to give in this best of 3, I think this is actually maybe the moment that he does go to a comfort deck, a bridge spam style deck, whether it does have P.E.K.K.A. or MK, whether it is Ram Rider or it's more traditional with Magic Archer Battle Ram style. But I do think if Wero plays what he's best in the world with in game number 2, it's not that bad of a decision. Yes, it might be a little bit obvious, but again, you're the best in the world with it. You know how to outplay, and you have a game to give. Legolas on the other side of it, taking into consideration what's being played and what his opponent likes to play, maybe he does go to the skies. Okay, yeah, maybe the Lava Hound, something to ultimately see with the Inferno Dragon, the Flying Machine, etc. We have seen that a couple of times already. It's definitely a success. So I see a couple of people giving their opinions on what they would like to see, from the Electro Giant to the Hog Rider once again, but no. Probably no Electro Giant if I had to guess right here. Yeah, seen very, very little Electro Giant. So it looks like we were right on one side of the board. You see here that Well, actually, it's not true. Wero could still just be running Royal Giant, but Legolas running Tesla plus Skellies plus Log. I'd be surprised if we saw Expo, but it's definitely a possibility. Archer's one more card in favor of what could be Expo. And, you know, we did see Expo come out yesterday, and it did have success. It was played very well by, I think it was Titan. But in general, Expo not very popular at the highest levels of competition because you really do have to play through what your opponents always know those matchups through and through because it is such a popular deck in the game.
You're playing against, obviously, very quality players you keep going back to in Wero, and you're down 1-0 here in the finals. Maybe that is what it takes to try something a little more ridiculous that they wouldn't expect you to be running in the finals. But 2 more cards to find out, but that's going to be a nice solid push here for Wero, meanwhile, as the Knight and Archers will come down in defense as well as a Log, using everything, all that Elixir, and actually does stop it pretty well.
Yeah, and after, you know, you see the Zappies come out, it did feel like it was going to be back towards more sort of a bridge spam version. Legolas does go back to Hog Rider. And again, this is not a great matchup for Legolas because, you know, there's not really going to be a building in play, so the Earthquakes will get value in situations like what we just saw there on a bit of a pile-up defense. But now that Wero knows what his opponent's running, and he knows that the Earthquake cycles won't beat him in this game, he can always use that Ram Rider to defend the Hog Rider. You know, we saw the Ram Rider slow down the balloon before. Now we're going to see the same thing against the Hog over and over. And he has Zappies, and he has P.E.K.K.A., and he's the best player in the world with P.E.K.K.A., which is why you see him cycling it in this lane.
Go with the big bad machine himself, P.E.K.K.A. Marching down the left, out comes the Hog Rider, the Hog Rider, excuse me. But I was going to say we're going to see the Ram Rider quickly, but nope, going to allow some for a little bit of damage. Instead, the Ram Rider coming on the left side, looking to use it perhaps more offensively. The Poison showing off the last card from Wero as well, so going to get some good pressure here. The Log defense though as well.
That was a beautiful Mother Witch that came out there from Wero, anticipating the Skeletons to come in on top to try to defend the defensive cards that came out. But on the other side of it, you see a very even situation here. The other problem, or could be a problem, is once we get into a 2-tower game, it does really then feel like it falls in Wero's favor. But the fact that we are getting into double elixir, that we're getting into overtime right now, does mean that Legolas has a great shot at spell cycling this and pushing it to game number 3.
Well, that's what obviously Legolas is hoping for. It'll be a difficult effort, but perhaps the chances there, as P.E.K.K.A. going to be aggroed into the middle. And we'll put down the tower, the Tesla, to continue that trend. Once again, the Ram Rider on the left side coming out. There's a Hog aiming to assist, but another Royal Delivery. Hog, he actually connects, does the Ram Rider. At a 324 and counting due to that poison tick as well. The P.E.K.K.A.'s hitting the right tower. But meanwhile, the Hog Rider on the right side, and a steal. Legolas gets it. Oh, both sides getting the pressure. But the Hog Rider clutches in the end. Wow.
Yeah, there were so many things that were beautiful about those final moments of gameplay. The defense on Legolas' side, the fact that he was able to take 2 P.E.K.K.A. hits on one side, under defend, create just enough defense on the left-hand side with that Ram Rider. He knew exactly what was going to happen because once he saw that overspend on the right-hand side with the Royal Ghost plus the P.E.K.K.A. push, really the Tesla is going to be your best response. You can't drop a Knight into that. And he did try to drop Skeletons, and there was a Mother Witch there as well. So Wero doing all the things correctly, kind of selling out, but just not able to get enough damage through. Legolas barely defends and then somehow, some way, squeezes that Hog Rider in on the right-hand side through an ocean of Zappies and gets that big swing to go to game number 3. That is some good stuff.
That was great, and that's one of those cases, you knew it's a risk, but you know what? You're down 1-0. You're falling behind in that game as well. That Hog Rider, you just go aggressive with it, see what you can make happen. I was kind of wondering, where was more defense, but that exactly explains where that defense was. It was offense still in the end for Legolas, and got through. And I saw the Hog Rider earlier too. He got surrounded by Zappies, but he got a good 3 or 4 hits out of the tower, and thought to myself, okay, he's actually keeping up some pressure pretty well. But of course, that's what helped make the difference. The Hog Rider MVP. And we got a game 3 now for our finals. Wouldn't want it any other way, baby.
It was just the fact that Legolas was able to defend so well when it felt like he had half the elixir was really the only reason he stayed in that game. Those Hog Riders going in on the opposite lane, getting, like you're saying, 2 or 3 hits because they're under-defended means that you should be able to, theoretically, if you're under-defending, you should be able to go on offense over. You should be able to over-offend then. And he just wasn't able to do it. You talk about perfect defenses, and that's why some people really love those hog decks, is because they cycle so quickly and the cards are that strong. You talk about single target DPS, enough of it's there. The Tesla is still so powerful in the game, even with the nerf. And yeah, we're going to game number 3. You love to see it.
Finals. This is it. Game 3. We got one more game to decide who our champion is going to be, taking up their share of the prize pool, which, like I said, I believe is $2,400 for first place alone, doubling up what second place makes, which is still a nice $1,200 right there. But also the points, as we mentioned, going towards that final event, very significant as well. So yeah, some definitely some good money in the line for what's coming down to the one game now. We'll
talking about the journey that we went on today. We were kind of teasing that as we hopped into this game. Yeah. Wero taking out Wallace, Osama, and Adriel along his path to get to our finals. And then Legolas takes down Abdu Judo, who, like I was saying before, would have loved to see him play. He was perfect 6-0 yesterday, but wasn't able to get past round 1. He was able to take one game off of Legolas. Then Legolas goes 2-1 over Furkan. Then he goes 2-1 over Paradox. And kind of like what you pointed out, at least after he got through Titan, was with Abdu Judo, they were all 2-1 wins from both of these guys, which is, like you said, it means that there's obviously room for your opponent to adjust and pick up the game. That it wasn't just dominant victories throughout, but also it shows that these guys that have made it to the finals have that perseverance, that fruition, that mental fortitude that you have to have when you drop a game in a set. Pressure gets exponentially higher when it's 1-1, winner takes all, and they were always the guy that came out on top.
Yeah, and again, knowing the fact that when you win with that deck, you cannot use any cards from that deck. So once again, going back to the format of what we're running here for this tournament. So this being the final game, we really gotta decide wisely, what you want to be running here, especially knowing that obviously 8 of those cards are banned from being played.
And as we're about to close out our weekend here at Royale Masters, we invite all of you guys to join us on Twitter and Discord at Royale Masters. You can also find us there on YouTube. That way you guys can join in on the competition, just like these guys did. It was an open qualifier. Registration opens later today so that you can compete next weekend, and you can hear us talk all about you playing Clash Royale. Here we go. Game number 3 of our finals. It all comes down to this, man.
Here we go. Zappies are up. There's a Royal Ghost already in front. And we got that Mama Witch also trucking on down, so getting a little bit more information. Goblin Cage, Flying Machine. On either side even, going to be happening. So is this possibly going to be a Lava Hound? Tapping. Oh, it's Royal Hogs actually on the side of Legolas. Looking at a win condition there. Early on. Fireball, though, response in hand for Wero. So he's already got that defense ready.
Yeah, and you figure with Wero losing that last game that we're going to see maybe a lot of the repeat cards that we saw there. Dark Prince, Royal Ghost, Mother Witch, Flying Machine, these guys all coming out because, if you can't win with it, you might as well use them again. They are that strong in the game. And like we were saying before, Wero definitely knows how to use all these cards very effectively. So I like what he's doing, going back to the well on a decent amount of the cards that we're seeing. And it's Legolas has to get a little more innovative here in game number 3.
Still 30 more seconds before that double elixir. And okay, we haven't seen the Royal Guards for a while, but coming back here in the final game of the tournament now. We're on day number 2, and it's going to be sent out by Legolas and starts marching down. So what kind of response is going to come out of Wero?
Yeah, the recruits just dropped like one tile too low. The Flying Machine ends up connecting on that right-hand side, and now we're going to see how this splash defense comes in. Dark Prince on one side, Royal Ghost on the other, but a Flying Machine right behind for a big connection on the left-hand side. Going to get 2 more shots in. There they are, 11-16. 974 remains on the left-hand tower. Wero in trouble early on.
Yeah, the recruits, excuse me there, but a Fireball going to be shown as the last card for Legolas. Used defensively at that point. Nice block as well as the cage comes out right in front of the Ram Rider. I thought that she was going to maybe get a chance to do something special there, but killed off pretty quickly.
Well, and you see there just like how much the Ram Rider demands out of an opponent. You see the massive overspend, Goblin Cage plus the barrel plus the Spirit, and the Ram Rider still almost connects, and there's basically a negligible counter push that comes in for Legolas.
All right, everyone showing, both sides showing what they have now. The P.E.K.K.A. comes down. There's the Royal Recruits, though. The Hogs on the right-hand side going to make a pretty good push happen here as that Pekka trying to march on through. The Royal recruits still holding strong. The flying machine as well.
He misses the flying machine, though, with the fireball. That's trouble. If you want to hit anything in that whole group, you want to hit the flying machine. Now a big-time counter push can come in, and the flying machine is protected. And he can split the Royal Hogs, making it maybe a 3-1 split. Really hard to defend. No, he goes all 4, one lane, right-hand side.
Right-hand side, even the tower that's even a little healthier, but not for long. It's going to start going down that much further, doing everything you can with that Prince, but it's down to 608 and 974 between the two towers, so certainly the advantage for Legolas, but there's still fight left in Wero. Pekka marching back the other direction, the Zappies being a bit of pain in the butt as they tend to be, though.
And look at that. Zappy stuns the tower, allows the Pekka to get a shot in. That is a big shot, and on both sides you see the flying machine come down. But the problem here is, Wero just doesn't have enough splash damage to clean up that tower. Not quite in spell cycle range. He has to get 2 fireballs down. You can't be spending those carelessly, especially against this deck, which is why you're seeing the pile up. But just a lot of trouble right now for Wero.
This is the final game that we definitely hope for. It's coming down pretty clutch. That's an offensive fireball actually going to be used on the side of Wero, knowing that he's in desperate times right here. As he is behind, but out come the Hogs, the flying machine. He just calls the GG. That is going to do it, it looks like. Legolas is going to be your tournament champion.
Wow, look at that. Legolas goes all the way through, walks away with $2,400, and Wero, you know why he runs Pekka, but maybe should have thought a little bit about the fact that Royal Hogs were still in play, but so was Royal Giant, so maybe that's why he goes Pekka. But MK, another card that we know Wero knows how to play well, would have been a great help there with those Royal Hogs, but man, the missed fireballs from Wero's and the great plays from Legolas throughout allow him to walk away as our first qualifier champion here at Royale Masters. And as you were just saying, yeah, we can give him a little bit of the golf clap. $2,400 in his pocket, and a big-time congratulations there, taking down one of the best in the world.
Yeah, fun to watch, and I go back to a lot of the earlier victories throughout the rounds for Legolas, coming around the wall breaker strategy, but that's where that idea comes into play. Is the finals here, maybe expect to pull it out, but he really respects Wero as a player, and for whatever reason want to really change it up. But obviously, what he chose to go with in the end was enough to get the job done and take it 2-1. So Wero certainly nothing to be discouraged about either, as we'll take a look when we look at the brackets. It sounds like here. Coming up, but we're finishing in that second place spot. Still a good chunk of money, obviously plenty of points, and again, there's 2 more of these open qualifiers that exist on top of that.
What a great weekend for Legolas. I mean, you talk about the people that he beat along the way, the fact that he came into the weekend, or he came into Sunday being a bit of an underdog. The name obviously known in the space, but the fact that, he was not a pro. He was not a guy that was signed to these big esports organizations back in the day. And he's a guy that's really been working really hard over the last couple months, last year and a half plus. And, he also was a guy that dropped one of his matches yesterday. So he was 5-1 coming in, but now he is the leader of our leaderboard and the person that's taken home the most prize money so far, as it is weekend number 1. There it is. Legolas, Wero, Adriel, Paradox, Nicola, Osama, Furkan, and DVJ. Obviously, the last 4 there you can see are tied in points and tied in the cash prize. But it's all about Legolas and Wero, and big-time congratulations, man. You love to see it, and one of the things that you pointed out throughout the day, Breaky, was just the variability in win condition and the strategy that came into gaming against his opponents. He found himself in a lot of really great matchups all weekend long.
Yeah, diversity in general, not only from Legolas as a player, but just really throughout all these matches, all the way through the finals. Again, we saw some strategies not even appear until the very finals, let alone the semifinals, and we start with the round of 16 and so on. So it seems like Clash Royale in general in a very healthy place when it comes to the competitive side of it. And yeah, those points, again, to reiterate, there's 3 of these open qualifiers. Those are important because the top 4 at the end of those 3 qualifiers will advance on to the main event, and then everyone else can compete for the final 4 spots in that main event. And 8 players total competing for what was it, the $20,000 or the $10,000 prize pool, excuse me.
Yep, and yeah, there it is. There's the prize pool that we're talking about. Just a few more weeks to get into playoffs, and yes, you can compete here at the Royale Masters. Go and follow us on Twitter and Discord at that name, Royale Masters, and registration for week 2 is now open. That's right, all of you guys out there, put your money where your mouth is. You're saying, I can beat these guys, I can play through these matchups. Breaky and I will be there. Make sure you go and you register right now for your opportunity to get a big chunk of that $5,000 next weekend and a big chunk of those points working towards our playoffs at the end of the run. 4 more weeks coming your way, so go check that out. Go register now. And thank you guys so much for watching Royale Masters. It was a great Saturday, a great Sunday. Wero comes up just a little bit short with $1,200 in second place, and Legolas is our champion for the weekend. So from all of us here at Royale Masters, for Breaky, for Rich Slayton, who was here yesterday, we will see you guys next weekend, same time, same place. Make sure you keep on clashing.
Love on a